Ladies and gents, boys and girls, what is going on? Thursday, July the 6th, 2023. Hope you're all doing well. Chris Phillips here, your host of the Daily Crow of the Spurs Up Show. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. We have got a packed show, a lot to get into here on this Thursday. It's a weird Thursday. It's just a weird week, right? Yesterday was the most Monday feeling Wednesday of all time because of the holiday and everything else. And of course, guys, like I said, I've been moving. So every single day has somewhat felt the same up until yesterday when it's just wake up, move. That's pretty much it. But anyways, happy Thursday to you all. Appreciate you all tuning in. I see Travi, Noah Johns, Xavier, my guy, Brennan. And Brendan, are you ready to be pissed off yet again today, my friend? Are you ready? I appreciate you tuning in, my guy. Just getting out the link right now for TDC as we're getting back in the groove. Of course, the one thing I forgot to do was publish the link to today's show. So we're getting that out right now. Apologies for the delay there. Again, guys, appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Those tuned in via YouTube, of course. If you're listening on the podcast, again, thank you all. Thank you so much for the love and support. Truly appreciate each and every single one of you guys. Like I said, we got a busy show. Hour number 3. We are taking your questions, your comments, your calls. 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. Guys, if you cannot call in that third hour, be sure to leave us a voicemail, shoot us a text, whatever it might be, and we will take all of those questions in that third hour in our Q&A Power Hour. In hour number 2, we've got my good friend Mark Ryan joining the show in his normal Thursday slot. Really excited to chat with Mark and get his full thoughts on my picks, my predictions, and my thoughts on this 2023 football season. And of course, guys, we got a lot to get into in this first hour as I wrap up and conclude and lock in my picks for the 2023 football season. Again, guys, appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Really exciting things. One thing I want to update really quickly. The relaunch of the TSUS store was the original plan was that was going to drop and was going to happen tonight. Instead, guys, what we are going to do, we're going to push that back a week. And the reason we're doing that, I talked with my guy Adam this morning in regards to strategy and executing on things and things we want to fix on the store, stuff like that. I figured, you know what? Let's keep the original store up. Let's give ourselves an extra week. I want to make sure when this thing drops that it is absolutely perfect. Right now, the rough draft, the new store looks incredible. It's just so much cleaner, man. For example, like when you go look at a Beamer Ball t-shirt, excuse me, guys, for example, on tsus.store, you know, it used to be I had to make 3 different products: Beamer Ball t-shirt white, Beamer Ball t-shirt black, Beamer Ball t-shirt garnet. Now it's just one product, and you hover over the mock-up in the picture, and it changes the colors. And so you click on that picture, you go to that link or whatever, and it's the Beamer Ball t-shirt, and you can change whatever color, whatever size you want in that one-stop shop, that one link there. Going to be so much easier, going to be so much user-friendly. And again, guys, what we're doing for enhancing the customer experience as well. Really excited for that. But again, it was just something I did not want to rush. It was something I did not want to rush. So next Thursday, I'll be promoting the heck out of it over the next, week or so, literally the next week or so, I'll be promoting that. And again, guys, really, really excited for what's to come on the storefront, the merchandise side of the business. Again, guys, appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. So excited to get rolling. So excited here on this Thursday. 6 games down, 6 more to go as we continue on with my game-by-game score predictions for the 2023 football season. We've got South Carolina right now through 6 games, sitting 3-3 overall, 1-3 in SEC play. A 3-game losing streak highlighted the first half of the season. What will the second half have in store? Here we go. South Carolina begins the second half with a road trip to Columbia, Missouri, the battle for the Mayor's Cup. And as we all know, South Carolina has struggled mightily against Mizzou and Eli Drinkwitz over the last 4 years, a 4-year losing streak, not just to Missouri, but Eli Drinkwitz as well, dating back to his time as head coach at Appalachian State. And again, the Gamecocks having to go to Como. What's so intriguing and so interesting, guys, about this series, if you take a look at it, the gambling lines, the total in this series, this game has gone under. I think it's like 8 of the last 9 years. It's been a lot of low-scoring, slugfest type of matchups. You look at Missouri, right? And this is a team that a lot of folks are high on. Some even proclaiming they might win 10 games this year, right? And it's a team that returns a lot, especially on that defense, right? We all recall what Missouri had on the defensive side a season ago, shut down the Gamecocks offensively. Was that Missouri's defense? Was that Marcus Satterfield? Was it a mix of the two? I'll leave that for you all to decide. But either way, it's a football team that returns 80% of their production on the defensive side. Brady Cook returns as their quarterback. Is he going to be their starter from game one till season's end, if you will? And Missouri is a team, they're looking for that breakout season, right? Under Eli Drinkwitz. He's floated in that 6-6 range practically his entire career at Mizzou and just got a big extension, by the way. They just gave him a fat check. So they believe in Eli Drinkwitz. They believe in what he can do at Mizzou. South Carolina, based off my predictions, sitting 3-3, 1-3 in SEC play, coming off the win over Florida, going into Como, looking to snap the streak. And as we saw last year, guys, wasn't last year a year where it just felt like all of the major streaks, or at least most of them, got broken? You won in Lexington for the first time since 2012. You took down Tennessee and you snapped that streak. You beat Texas A&M for the first time in school history. You snapped a 7-game losing streak against your arch rival, right? There were some streaks that, were really weighing down. It felt heavily on this program that South Carolina was able to exercise those demons. But the streak against Mizzou remains. And this is a game, what's so interesting about it, guys, this is a matchup. It's turned into what the Kentucky series was in the mid-2010s. You might recall, Kentucky won, I think, 5 straight in that series? I believe it was 5 straight they won in that series. And there was not a single game where if you asked a Gamecock fan, they just said, Kentucky was just a better team. They just recruit better than us. They got a better coach. They're just a better team. Nobody believed that. And the same goes for this series against Mizzou. You look on paper, Missouri doesn't recruit better than South Carolina. Are they a better program than South Carolina? Do they have better facilities than South Carolina? No, none of the above. So why do the Tigers keep beating the Gamecocks like a rented mule? Last year was the year in which you snapped a bunch of streaks, right? You ended a bunch of negative streaks. I think South Carolina, going to be a very tough game, low-scoring game, I think. Yet another low-scoring game. Somebody asked me yesterday, Chris, are you down? Are you down on the offense this year? Do you not think the offense is going to be any good? I'm not down on the offense, but I still think there's going to be some inconsistencies because of the line of scrimmage. There's going to be games where you struggle to run the football, right? I think this is probably, and we'll talk more about this next week, probably another year where you're outside of the top 100, rushing the ball and stopping the run. So there's going to be weeks where I think there's just going to be inconsistencies. I think your upside is going to be there. I think your ceiling is going to be very high. I actually think you'll be slightly better on the offensive side this year. But in this game, it traditionally, no matter what, has been a low-scoring, slugfest type of game. South Carolina, coming off the victory over Florida, I think in a game in which everyone is expecting Missouri to get the W because they have done so 4 years in a row. Eli Drinkwitz, guys, at this point, owns the Gamecocks. But as we saw last year, streaks are made to be broken. And I've got South Carolina doing just that, propelling off the game, off the victory against Florida, and turning that into back-to-back victories in SEC play. And Carolina gets a huge road W in Como and snaps the streak against Mizzou. Give me Gamecocks 26, Missouri 20 to move to 4-3 and 2-3 in SEC play. Next up is the road trip to Texas A&M, College Station, Kyle Field. The Texas A&M Aggies, one of the most disappointing teams in 2022. You talk about getting predictions wrong. I had A&M going 10-2 last year. And I think a lot of people had them as the breakout team in the West right after the $30 million recruiting class they had and all the great players, what have you. A&M was abysmal a season ago. And that is taking, by the way, nothing away from South Carolina's victory over them, snapping the streak. But I think we'd all agree, Texas A&M was one of the worst teams in the SEC. Finished 5-7. And when you think about the job they did or did not do with all the talent on that roster, because A&M's got talent. I mean, I think that's what's so maddening if you're a Texas A&M fan is like, you feel like there's no reason why Texas A&M should not be a quality football team. They've got everything they need in place. They've got great facilities. They've got the resources. They've got a big-time head coach in Jimbo Fisher who has won a national championship. They've got a great stadium. Again, the facilities are there. And they're recruiting at the highest level they've ever done. In comes Bobby Petrino. Can he fix that Texas A&M offense? Or can South Carolina, after snapping the streak and getting their first ever win in program history against A&M, can they turn that into back-to-back? And all of a sudden, this becomes a game for Shane Beamer that he looks on favorably. You know, we're obviously changing up the schedule starting next year, so it's not going to fall this way. But these seasons in which you have to go to Athens, to Knoxville, to College Station, even to Mizzou, it's absolutely brutal. And while I'm not going to get burned by Texas A&M again, guys, I'll tell you this. I ain't picking them to win 10 games, okay? I'm not going to allow myself to get overhyped on the Texas A&M Aggies yet again. But I do think with Connor Wegman at quarterback, Bobby Petrino at OC, I think a lot of those youngsters they recruited who were these high-flying five-stars who were not quite ready last year, I think they're going to play and be very good. I think Texas A&M will take a step forward. I think they're an 8, maybe 9-win team in the SEC West. And I think Texas A&M, it's going to be a little bit too much for South Carolina in College Station at Kyle Field. I think it's a close ball game, but I think at the end of the day, because it's in College Station, and I think Texas A&M will be much improved, I've got the Aggies getting the W in this one. Give me Texas A&M 34, South Carolina 24, as the Gamecocks fall to 4-4 and 2-4 in SEC play. So 4-4, 2-4 with 4 games to go. The following week, South Carolina returns home and begins home games to close out the 2023 football season. And they welcome Jacksonville State, the battle of the Gamecocks at Willie B. This is going to be a fun one. JSU's first season in the FBS. Hey, I'll say this. Do not sleep on Jacksonville State. We all recall what happened 2 years ago against Florida State. They beat the Seminoles. But I'll tell you this. Even after a loss to Texas A&M, guys, I really believe that this is where South Carolina is going to sort of get it going. I really do. Coming home as well after back-to-back tough road games, I think this is where Carolina is going to really start to click offensively. Maybe the line of scrimmage starts to come around a little bit and you're running the football much better than you did in the first half of the season. I mean, guys, we have seen it in the first 2 years of Shane Beamer. They remember November, and his teams play that way. It feels as if the Gamecocks sort of hit their peak or hit their ascent later in the season, which it makes sense, and that is a characteristic trait of a well-coached football team, right? You get better as the season goes on. Like I told you guys, I expect South Carolina to be a much better football team in weeks 10, 11, 12 than I do in 1, 2, and 3. I think the Gamecocks come home, get a much-needed blowout victory over Jacksonville State. I think they will take care of their business. I don't think JSU is ready. I don't think they've got the type of competition or the type of players they need to compete with South Carolina. I don't think this one is ever close. Give me Gamecocks, the right Gamecocks, 48, Jacksonville State, 10, as South Carolina takes care of their business in the non-conference, moving to 5-4 while sticking at 2-4 in SEC play. That brings us to the home date against the Vanderbilt Commodores. Vandy coming to town. South Carolina has won 13 straight in this series. And guys, I'll start by saying this. When I first locked in my prediction, or I was going through my predictions, my original score that I had written down was 42-17 South Carolina beating Vandy. But then I stopped and I looked back at the history of this series, and you know what's weird, guys? Even when South Carolina is playing good football, even when they're doing that, even when South Carolina has a really good team. I mean, last year's a perfect example. Nobody really remembers the Vandy game, guys, because it was sandwiched between, I know it was after Mizzou, and I believe it was the week before Florida, right? So it was sandwiched in between two terrible weeks for Gamecocks football. So nobody really recalls the game. Guys, do you recall that South Carolina only won that game by 11 points last year? And if you look back at the games at home against Vandy, they've all been pretty damn close. They've all been pretty close contests. The most recent, of course, in 2021, when Colonel Zeb had to come in the final drive and save the day and avoid embarrassment at Williams-Brice Stadium against Vanderbilt. So it got me thinking, South Carolina, again, won 13 straight in this series. I love what Clark Lee is doing in Nashville. I think he's a great fit for Vanderbilt. It seems like he's getting them to maybe invest a little bit more in the football program. I think he's doing a great job. I love the way he talks about their program. Hey, we want to be the best program in the country. I love that. I love that energy for Vandy, and I'd love nothing more than to see Vandy become a more competitive force in the SEC. You've got Nashville, or maybe I'm just saying this all because the Gamecocks have beaten them 13 in a row. Heck, I don't know. You tend to like teams more when you beat them year in, year out. Either way, Vanderbilt at some point is going to beat South Carolina. Nothing lasts forever, guys. Streaks, as I mentioned, are made to be broken. Vanderbilt is going to beat South Carolina, but it's not going to be this year. Not at Williams-Brice Stadium, not with Spencer Rattler at quarterback, not with, in my prediction, bowl eligibility on the line. It will not happen this season at Willie B. I do think it is a game that you look up and you say, how is that only a 7-point game? How is that game so close? I think it's a game that it doesn't make a lot of sense how close it was. But for whatever reason, even when the Gamecocks are playing good football, that just tends to happen against Vandy. So I do have South Carolina getting the victory, maybe a little bit closer than folks would prefer, but the Gamecocks punch their ticket to bowl eligibility against Vanderbilt. Final score, I've got the Gamecocks 31, Vanderbilt 24. Again, I think Vandy's on the up and up. I think Vandy, they beat Kentucky last year, beat Florida. They're not going to beat South Carolina. But I would not be surprised if it's a little bit of a closer game than many of us are expecting. So again, give me South Carolina 31, Vanderbilt 24 as the Gamecocks move to, 6-4? Yes, 6-4 and 3-4 in SEC play. So South Carolina going in the final two games with bowl eligibility secured, and now it's all about adding to that win total and taking care of some business down the stretch. The second to last week of the regular season, here comes the Kentucky Wildcats. And guys, Kentucky's a team, I'll tell you this, I'm high on Kentucky. I am. I think Kentucky, with Devin Leary at quarterback, Liam Cohen at OC, I think they're going to be much, much better offensively. Guys, do you realize South Carolina has beaten Kentucky at Williams-Brice Stadium? 2019, they took care of the Cats. Outside of that, you had to go back to 2013. That was the last time South Carolina beat Kentucky at Willie B outside of 2019. This has been a series that has really flipped on its head. Is South Carolina able to flip it the other way now after taking down UK and Lexington a season ago? Either way, I expect Kentucky to have a rebound season. I think Mark Stoops is a very underrated coach in the SEC. He's a great culture fit for UK. They have built their brand on the line of scrimmage. Punching you in the mouth, running the ball, stopping the run. I think that's why the Gamecocks have had so many fits with UK over the years. And they will not be intimidated by Willie B, by the way. They will not be intimidated by Williams-Brice. They came in 2021 and beat the Gamecocks in year one of Shane Beamer. So I'm high on UK. But as I told you all yesterday, when I picked Carolina to lose to Mississippi State, this is college football. Expect the unexpected. I think Kentucky, guys, is a favorite in this game. I really do, believe it or not. I could see the Cats being 8-2 coming in. I haven't looked at their schedule. We'll do that. We'll break that down tomorrow. I could see them being a 7 or 8 win team coming in this game, riding high. I think Kentucky's a favorite in the game. But South Carolina, in late November, under Shane Beamer, is a different animal. They're just a different team. And so while I picked the upset yesterday, the Gamecocks would fall in disappointing fashion to Mississippi State, I think South Carolina gets one back here in a game against Kentucky where they're the underdog. Spencer Rattler, I'd expect this game to be under the lights. I think he shines yet again. It'll be a fun back and forth ball game. I do think it's a close ball game, but I've got South Carolina making it back-to-back wins over the Kentucky Wildcats as Spencer Rattler will outduel Devin Leary. The Gamecocks get just one more stop than Kentucky. And again, guys, like I told you, I think at this point in the season, South Carolina is playing much better football than they were in the first few weeks. Give me Gamecocks 34, Kentucky 28, as South Carolina moves to 7-4 and concludes the SEC slate at a 4-4 record, which I think would be a success. We'll talk more on that in just a second. So South Carolina winning 3 straight. I had you losing 3 straight in the first 6 games. I've got you winning 3 straight in these last 6. Will they make it 4 straight? As the Clemson Tigers in the annual rivalry matchup come to town. And guys, let me just say this. You know, we all know the Clemson storyline. Cade Klubnik will be their starting quarterback. You look at Clemson, what's their offensive line going to be? The receiver position, a question mark for them. You know, defensively, they should be stout yet again, just like they were last year. Got 2 of the best linebackers in all of college football. The defensive front, they're really high on. They feel like they've got even more competitive depth and quality depth than they had back in 2018. And, of course, Garrett Riley, a name we're all familiar with, takes over as Clemson's offensive coordinator. Last year was the first time in the history of TSUS, in the history of my business, in the history of me giving out predictions, it was the first time that I had ever picked the Gamecocks to beat Clemson going into a football season. In season was the first time I ever picked the Gamecocks to beat Clemson in a season. So it was a lot of firsts in regards to this Carolina-Clemson rivalry, because I call a spade, guys. I had been very genuinely honest about the state of the rivalry and that Clemson was miles ahead of South Carolina. Well, after last year, that is no longer the case. The gap is closing between the Gamecocks and the Tigers. And that is not to say that South Carolina is going to go on a 5, 6, 7-game winning streak or anything of that sort, but the gap is closing. South Carolina is getting closer, and they are taking back the state slowly but surely. With that being said, you guys might recall, if you paid attention last year, I had a feeling very early on in the summer about this game. I had a weird feeling. Felt like you had the advantage at quarterback with Spencer Rattler. They had DJ Uiagalelei, who's now at Oregon State. And I felt for the first time since 2013, you had the better quarterback, and if you have the better quarterback, you have a chance. And I had this weird feeling about the game, which led me to pick the upset and South Carolina snapping the streak. Admittedly, guys, I have been searching for that feeling this entire summer. I have been searching for that feeling this entire offseason. And unfortunately, I have not been able to find it. Many of you are going to want to punch me through the computer screen, punch me through your phone, you're listening, however you're listening, whatever it might be. Or some of you will just hate to hear this. When it came down to the OC search, okay, I liked Garrett Riley. He was at the top of my list for South Carolina. And maybe this is because I'm wired differently and I can take the garnet glasses off or not even really wear them at all. Just because Garrett Riley, who, if he would have came to South Carolina, Gamecock fans would have been touting as the best OC in the country, just because he went to a different school does not mean he now sucks. I still view Garrett Riley as one of the best offensive coordinators in college football. That is not a slight at Dowell Loggins. This conversation has nothing to do with Dowell Loggins. The point I am making is this. I do not think Clemson will be such a liability on the offensive side like they were a season ago. I don't think you're going to see Cade Klubnik go 8 for 29 in this ball game like DJ Uiagalelei did last season at Memorial Stadium. I think the days of this game being a blowout, right, that we saw when Clemson dominated, I think those are in the past. I think this is a fiercely competitive game. Williams-Brice Stadium will be rocking from start to finish. But I think Clemson, they may not be a national championship caliber team, but they very well may be a college football playoff contender. And I understand, hey, and if they were in the SEC, if they played this, but they don't. They're in the ACC. Guys, there's a chance that Clemson comes into this game with a 10-1 record. And this could be a game that, once again, their playoff hopes are on the line. South Carolina was able to overcome deficiencies at the line of scrimmage, rely on the arm of Spencer Rattler, rely on Beamer ball, and get a much-needed victory in snapping the streak. As I mentioned previously, I've been looking for that feeling all offseason. I've desperately wanted to find it. I simply have not. I think Clemson is better than you on the line of scrimmage. I think Cade Klubnik, their quarterback situation, got immensely upgraded simply by the addition of Garrett Riley. And so I don't think you can count on that as a liability yet again. I think this is a fiercely competitive game, but I do have the Clemson Tigers coming into Williams-Brice Stadium and getting the victory. Give me Clemson 35, South Carolina 27 in a really close, competitive, back-and-forth game. I see this being a fourth-quarter game. I think Clemson's just got a little bit more than you do. And I think the Tigers bounce back from last year and get the W as you finish your season 7-5 overall and 4-4 in SEC play. So let's go start to finish one more time. My game-by-game score predictions for the Gamecocks 2023 football season. I've got South Carolina beating North Carolina week 1, 31-27. Beating Furman week 2, 35-20. Losing to Georgia week 3, 41-10. Losing to Mississippi State week 4, 24-17. Losing to Tennessee 45-28 in week 5. A bye week in week 6. Beating Florida 41-20 in week 7. Week 8, beating Mizzou 26-20. Week 9, losing to Texas A&M 45-24. Week 10, beating Jacksonville State 48-10. Week 11, beating Vandy 31-24. Week 12, beating Kentucky 34-24. And finally, week 13, losing to the Clemson Tigers 35-27, a 7-5 overall finish, a 4-4 record in SEC play. And let me say this, guys, while I think it would be a minor step back, obviously from the wins and losses side of things, I do think there would be enough positive from this season to continue the ascension of Gamecocks football under Shane Beamer. So again, lock me in 7-5, 4-4 in SEC play in year 3 of Beamer ball. Guys, we're going to jump into our first break of the day. On the other side, we will keep the conversation rolling here on this Thursday. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow.
Muscle Dougie, ho. Muscle doggy ho, doggy ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Thursday, July the 6th, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Again, excited for the Q&A Power Hour. I looked over the break, and I know many of you have thoughts, reactions, comments to what just took place, my predictions for the second half of the season, and in turn, the entire Gamecocks 2023 football season. I've got 7-5, 4-4. In SEC play, which again, guys, I would not be disappointed. I said it yesterday and I'll say it yet again, and we're actually going to talk about this more a little bit later in the show. I think South Carolina was a better football team last year. I think they actually had less question marks last year. So, and here's the thing. Austin Gregory makes a great point. Growth is not linear. South Carolina is not going to go 7 wins in year 1, 8 in year 2, 9 in year 3, 10 in year 4, 11 in year 5. It just doesn't work that way, guys. It does not work that way. And if there's any year where South Carolina is going to take a step back, I think it's going to be this year, guys. Unfortunately, even with the return of Spencer Rattler, Juice Wells, I think it's going to be this season. Because of the questions you have on the offensive line, because of the questions you have on the defensive line, because you only have 2 scholarship running backs. We'll talk more about that next week, again, when we dive into offense, defense, and special teams. In the meantime, I want to dive into what's the most important 3-game stretch of the 2023 football season. The 3-game stretch that will, dare I say, define how this season looks for South Carolina. And there are multiple candidates. You can first start with the first 3. How about that? UNC in Charlotte, Furman at home, and Georgia on the road. You could convince me, right? A lot of people have labeled UNC as the most important game of the 2023 season. And it's very important, right? I've got you winning that game 31-27, but it's very important to set the tone for your season and get off on the right foot. You always want to win your season opener. Also, you kind of feel like if you can't beat UNC, you're going to play much stiffer competition throughout the season. It could be a very rough year. Furman in week 2 is as much of a gimme as a gimme gets. And then week 3 against Georgia, you could view as sort of that measuring stick game. You're really going to find out like where Carolina is, right? We're really going to find out, okay, where are the Gamecocks? How close or far away are they at that point? You could also convince me it's the final 3 games of the 2023 season. Vanderbilt, a game that you've won 13 in a row in the series, but you need to win. That's a should win. Kentucky the following week is a toss-up, one that you expect to win, and then the rivalry matchup with Clemson. Guys, I've talked about this before in the airwaves. You could convince me that Clemson is the most important game of the season. The reason being that, and I know it's not an SEC game, whatever, but let's go back to last year. Even with the Tennessee win, if you had lost to Clemson, and this is just my opinion, if you had lost to Clemson, I don't think your season is looked at in such a positive light like it is right now. I don't think it is. Like, beating your rival is such a boost. It's such a boost for your program, recruiting, your fan base especially, everything you're doing, right? So you could convince me that, hey, if you're not competing to go to Atlanta in these years that you're not competing to go to the SEC championship, what's the next best thing you can do? It's beat your arch rival. So you could convince me that Clemson's the most important game of the season and that final 3-game stretch is the most important for South Carolina. But I'm going elsewhere. I'm going elsewhere in the schedule. My most important 3-game stretch this season, and I just brought him up a little bit ago, our guy Austin Gregory in the Big Cock Club Discord, he almost nailed it because he said Florida, Mizzou, Texas A&M. I'm starting a week prior to that. My key 3-game stretch, my most important 3-game stretch. At Tennessee, there's the bye week in there, so I guess technically it's a 4-week stretch, 3-game stretch. At Tennessee, you get the bye, but then Florida at home and Missouri on the road. Here's why. I think this is the point in the season when South Carolina starts to find their stride. And I think it's important that they do find their stride. Even if you beat Mississippi State, by the way. This is a very important stretch. At Tennessee, guys, in my opinion, people want to look at Georgia as the measuring stick. Where are we at? I don't really think that's fair for where this program is right now. I think Georgia is so head and shoulders above everybody. I don't think that's the game where it's really going to be the measuring stick that you hope it is. Let me put it that way. That game at Tennessee will be. I really see that as a game where you look at it and you say, okay, where are you? Tennessee's a team last year, and you look at their most important game of the season. Many of them have labeled South Carolina as that game, by the way. But you look at what Tennessee did last year, what they're doing under Josh Heupel. It's weird, right? The amount of hype that Tennessee's getting compared to South Carolina. Doesn't it feel like Tennessee is getting so much more hype than the Gamecocks? Why is that? Well, your exciting brand of offense and, you win, 10, 11 games last year, whatever. You take down Clemson in the Orange Bowl. There's reason to be excited. But I think that's a great measuring stick game in Knoxville. And if you can win that one, and guys, I told you, I'm not high on South Carolina's chances in that one because I just think Tennessee, after what happened last year, I'd be stunned if the Vols didn't play their best game. I really would. But if you were to win that game, that all of a sudden becomes a swing game that can propel you to a 9-win season. Dare I say double digits. I don't want to get out ahead of myself. So you've got that game against Tennessee. Then Florida, we've talked about. I think it's the most important game of the season because I don't think you're going to beat Tennessee. I think you're going to go into the bye week sort of searching for yourself a little bit, trying to figure some things out. That Florida game's pivotal to get off the schneid, play good football, play your best football, dare I say, and at least show signs of promise for the second half of the season. And then you've got that Missouri game. And guys, if you rank these games in regards of importance, there's some fans out that say the game at Mizzou is the most important. And I think a lot of people are hesitating to say that this year because of what happened last year, right? Because you lost to Mizzou, and still had a great season. But that's a streak that has to end, guys. I mean, that is a streak that when you're talking about, hey, we're on the up and up under Shane Beamer, we're on the ascent. How can you say that? If you have a 5-game losing streak to Mizzou, if you lose to them this year and you have a 5-game losing streak, not just to Missouri, guys, but Eli Drinkwitz, that dork, a 5-game losing streak to him? How can you say your program is on the ascent if you lose that game and you got that losing streak hanging over your head? They're all 3 toss-up games, at least the way I categorize these games. Admittedly, guys, again, not all toss-ups are built the same. So Tennessee's a game, I think it'd be a huge upset. Florida's a game, I think you should win. I think most of Gamecock Nation is expecting you to win. And then I look at Mizzou. That is one that you looked at like Kentucky a couple of years ago where it's like, we just got to snap this freaking streak, man. We got to get this tiger-sized monkey off our back, man. This cannot continue. This cannot go on any longer because Missouri's a team that they return a lot this year. 80% of their production's back. Basically, their entire defense. Like, they're going to be a quality middle-of-the-pack SEC team. But they're not better than South Carolina, man. Not as a program. But you're getting to a point where if they beat you this year, you're not going to have any choice but to say Missouri owns South Carolina and Missouri is a better football program. So that 3-game stretch, guys, right there, because of the implications of those games individually, and because also I think that is a very, very important part of the schedule. We all know the front half is a gauntlet. The first 5 games are a gauntlet for South Carolina. But even in a loss to Tennessee, and I'm not trying to be about moral victories here, but even in a loss to Tennessee, I had 45-28 the final. I think offensively, some things start to get going. If you can have some encouraging signs in Knoxville, a place that's been a house of horrors, by the way, for you, historically. If you can have some encouraging signs there, carry that into the bye week, continue to grow and evolve offensively under Dowell Loggins, Clayton White, and that defensive staff, shore some things up. You go into the Florida game re-energized, focused, taking the positives away from Knoxville, kick some Gator tail, have something to feel good about going into Mizzou, and then who knows? If you can snap that streak, all of a sudden, the outlook of your season going into the second half has changed drastically, especially when on the back end of the schedule, guys, you've got Jacksonville State, Vandy, Kentucky, and Clemson at home. I mean, that's the key in this season, guys. If you can get through the first 8, 4-4 or better, you're giving yourself a great opportunity going into the final 4 games because they're all at Williams-Brice Stadium. And as we've talked about, if you get the Gamecocks under the lights, who knows? They're a tough team to beat under the lights at Willie B. So again, my most important 3-game stretch, and a 3-game stretch I think that could define the 2023 football season with the Gamecocks at Tennessee, against Florida, and at Missouri. Guys, that being said, we're going to jump into another quick break. Appreciate you all tuning in on the other side. We're going to keep the conversation rolling here on this Thursday. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow.
Muscle Dougie, ho. Muscle Dougie Ho. Dougie Ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Thursday. Hope you're enjoying your day and appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Again, guys, in our third hour, we will have our Q&A power hour. We'll take all of your questions, your comments, your calls as well. Very excited to hear from each and every single one of you. I can't imagine what you'd want to talk about here on this Thursday. As again, I have concluded with my game-by-game score predictions. 7-5, 4-4. In SEC play is where I have the Gamecocks. Coming up at 1:15, we've got my good friend Mark Ryan joining the show. I'm very intrigued to get Mark's reaction to my game-by-game predictions, especially as I have picked the Clemson Tigers to win the rivalry game to close out the season. So excited to chat with Mark in our second hour. And again, guys, thank you all so much for tuning in, and thank you for the continued love and support of the Spurs Up Show. We actually booked our spot for Nashville for SEC Media Days this morning. Very excited. I mean, I just, it almost feels kind of surreal right now as we get closer and closer to SEC Media Days. It will set in and become more of a reality, and I just cannot wait to get there, man, and hang out. And it's going to be an electric week, man. You guys know. I think the mini vlogs might have to return, by the way, for that. I think so. I think that's definitely going to happen. I'm really looking forward to it. Anyways, guys, we're going to keep the conversation rolling. And I caught a lot of grief for my schedule breakdown post in which I categorized South Carolina's 2023 schedule in wins, toss-ups, and losses, right? I caught a lot of grief from people. What a cop-out. He's not bold enough to make a prediction. Just say you don't know what you're talking about. Well, as we all know, that is not the case, as you just heard me lock in my game-by-game predictions. But on the note of the schedule breakdown and categorizing games, wins, toss-ups, losses, what have you, the purpose of that breakdown and why I do that, as I talked about yesterday, is it helps you to, it gives you a starting point. Okay, what are the possibilities for the football team this season? And so in light of that, I want to talk best case, worst case for the Gamecocks 2023 football season. What is the realistic best case scenario for South Carolina? And what is the realistic worst case? Now, I put the word realistic in there because somebody's going to say, Chris, best case is 12-0. Worst case is 0-12. What are we talking about? Well, guys, no duh, but realistic best case and worst case. South Carolina's not going 0-12, and they're not going 12-0. So what's the realistic best case and worst case scenario for the Gamecocks this season? And I cannot wait for your reaction to this, because I know there's some of you who are going to disagree. Because as I said before, what's interesting is I feel like when comparing the 2022 Gamecocks to the 2023 Gamecocks, South Carolina was a better football team last year. South Carolina had less question marks last year than they do coming into this season. And my best case scenario, guys, going into the 2022 season, more on that in just a second. I want to tease that because I want to start with the worst case. Let's start with the bad news first. What's the worst case, realistic worst case scenario for Gamecocks football? Again, I've got 3 wins. And let's do this, by the way. As I told you all, not all the toss-ups are built equally. There's some that I feel are much more likely to be a loss or much more likely to be a win. So let's go ahead and do this and make it easier. I'm going to go ahead and throw Tennessee in the loss bucket. I don't think, of all the toss-ups, I think Tennessee is the least likely victory. I just think, guys, the ball's in Knoxville. They've got that one circled. Whether it's close, blowout, whatever, Tennessee is going to take care of business. They're not going to allow the Gamecocks to come into their building and beat them yet again. So throw that one as an L. Let's also put Florida in the win column. I feel confident in saying almost the opposite situation. South Carolina at home, looking for revenge. I don't see a scenario in which the Gamecocks fall to Florida. So now we have 4 wins, 2 losses in heavy black ink. So that's 4-2 off the bat. 6 toss-up games. South Carolina is not going to lose them all, guys. They're not going to lose them all. Is there a scenario, realistically, where Carolina, Spencer Rattler, does not play well? He's inconsistent yet again. He's turnover prone for the second straight season. Dowell Loggins turns out to be better than Marcus Satterfield, but just slightly, not as good as we all hoped. The offensive line is an even greater concern than we thought. Running back is a mystery all season long. Nobody steps up on the outside to help out Juice Wells. Trey Knox, Joshua Simon, these other guys, they cannot fill the void left by Jaheim Bell. On the defensive side, Gamecocks finish outside the top 100 in stopping the run yet again and cannot consistently get pressure on the quarterback. Linebacker still an eyesore, and the secondary, while it's great on the back half with Nick Imawari and DQ Smith, suffers from the losses of Cam Smith, Darius Rush, and Marcellus Dial and O'Donnell Fortune are not able to fill the void left by those 2 players. If all those things happen, worst case scenario, 5-7 for the Gamecocks. 5-7. If all that happens, I think the worst case scenario, realistically, for South Carolina football is 5-7. Excuse me. Best case scenario. Let's get back into this. Best case scenario for the Gamecocks this season. As I mentioned, guys, I believe the 2022 version of the Gamecocks was a better football team than this football team in 2023. Last year's team had far less question marks than this one does, in my opinion. And I was almost stunned when I went back and I actually listened to last year's show, because sometimes I like to go back and just kind of see, okay, what was the structure, the format of what I was doing? What do I like? What do I not like? How do I want to change things up? But my best case scenario for last year, it almost stunned me, was 8-4. It was 8-4. And I predicted Carolina to hit that best case scenario at 8-4. Some of you picked, not best case scenario, some of you picked 9-3. There were some folks picking 10-2. And so I caught a lot of flack for saying the best case scenario was 8-4. Well, let's look back at this schedule. Okay? 4 wins. If you throw Florida in that bucket, 2 losses if you throw Tennessee in that bucket. So 4-2. The Gamecocks have 6 swing games. North Carolina, Texas A&M, Missouri, Mississippi State, Kentucky, and Clemson. For the Gamecocks to go 9-3, they would have to go 5-1 in those toss-up games. I think that's too aggressive. And I sat there because I originally had 9-3. And guys, I was sitting there, I was saying, how can I have the best case scenario be better than last year if I felt like last year's team was better than this one? And last year's team, you could argue, had a more favorable schedule. 4-2 in your toss-up games, I very realistically could see. 3-3, I think, is very likely, and where I have you in my game-by-game score predictions. Could 2-4 also happen? It could. It could. But when it comes to the best-case scenario, hey, I talked about all the negatives. Let's talk the positives. Spencer Rattler makes a major jump this year, protects the football, does much more what we saw in the final 2 regular season weeks, does a lot more of that all throughout this season. He's able to be much more consistent. Dowell Loggins is a massive upgrade over Marcus Satterfield. The offensive line under Lonnie Teasley steps up and is better than expected. Juju McDowell, DeCarrion Joyner, Mario Anderson, Dontavius Braswell, the freshman, they're able to fill in at the running back position. Juice Wells is a 1,000-plus yard receiver. Xavier Legette steps up. Amarian Brown steps up. Eddie Lewis steps up. Nick Harbor plays a big role as a freshman. Trey Knox, Joshua Simon. Trey Knox has his breakout campaign at South Carolina, his breakout collegiate campaign. Defensively, Clayton White is able to assemble a defense in which they continue to take steps forward. Secondary's a strength yet again. Dial and Fortune on the outside stay healthy, and there is not a serious drop-off there. Pup Howard, Stone Blanton, Mo Kaba returns from injury. Jerron Willis from the portal. Jatius Gear up front for the portal. Jordan Strawn returns from injury. And the defense is able to, at minimum, just hold their own and be a positive. Also, Beamer Ball takes over and steals a game or two. My best case scenario for South Carolina, 8-4. And I know many of you are going to say, Chris, no freaking way. Like I said, when you break it down, I'm giving you the Florida game as a 4th win. You got 4 wins I'm putting a W next to. I'm putting Tennessee in the loss column. That's 2 L's. That leaves you with 6 toss-ups. Carolina will have to go 5-1 in those toss-ups to go 9-3. And guys, I have just simply put, I've not seen that level of consistency from South Carolina. I have not. I have not seen that level of consistency. 4-2 is doable. 4-2 is doable. 3-3, while it feels quote-unquote safe, if you will, I was like, am I being a little bit too conservative with these picks? Am I being safe? Maybe it's safe, but I think it's the right pick. I think it's the right pick at the end of the day. 3-3 is most likely. 4-2, I think you're stretching it. 5-1 feels unrealistic in those 6 swing games. And so for that reason, I have 8-4 as the best case scenario for Gamecocks football this season, which matches what I had last year. And like I told you guys, I think the Gamecocks were a better football team last year. So worst case, 5-7. Best case, 8-4. Realistic worst case and best case for Gamecocks football this season. What say you? Guys, let's jump into another break. On the other side, very excited to chat with my friend Mark Ryan of the Fan Upstate. He will join us at 1:15 as we continue to rock and roll here on this Thursday. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow.
Muscle Dougie Ho. Muscle Dougie Ho.
All right, what is up, guys? Welcome back here on this Thursday, July the 6th, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in an electric show here on this Thursday as we await Mark Ryan to join us at 1:15. Guys, a couple of quick updates really briefly. The TSUS store relaunch will be happening in a week from today. Was planning on tonight. Talked to my merch guy this morning, though, and said, you know what, let's push it back a week just to make sure we have everything in place exactly how we want. Really excited, guys. We'll continue to promote the heck out of this thing and share with you guys what we've been working on. Really, really excited for what is to come with tsus.store as we enhance the merchandise, yes, but most importantly, the customer experience, making it easier, much more enjoyable for you all, driving even more value, and really just saying thank you to all of those who show love and support for the Spurs Up show and everything we do on the merchandise side of the business. Again, guys, we'll take all of your questions, your comments, your calls as well in the third hour as I see so many comments, so many questions. My guy, Eric Reese, what's up, man? My guy, Eric Reese. Shout out to Eric Reese, by the way. He is the reason for the fantastic game-by-game graphics, really all of our graphics. Eric Reese is the man behind that. Also, the call-in graphics, you can say thank you to Eric Reese for that. He is the one that that did that for us, and really appreciate that because that's really cool. I mean, that the call-in graphics are awesome, man. The call-in graphics are awesome. So, also, guys, we dropped the schedule for our TSUS season simulation series, the video game series in which we'll simulate the Gamecocks 2023 football season. It begins Sunday, July the 23rd, and will conclude, I think the conclusion date was what? August the 15th, 14th, something like that. Yeah, August the 15th, Tuesday, August the 15th. Breaking news, former Gamecocks assistant coach Chuck Martin moves on from Oregon to Kentucky. He has been recruiting Cam Scott from Lexington, South Carolina. That is significant. That is significant for that young man's recruitment. That is for sure. Anyways, guys, we're awaiting Mark Ryan. Again, appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, but love your feedback, by the way. How you guys liking the new setup, the new studio? I'm loving it personally, man. I just, the whole vibe is so much better. The whole vibe is so much better, man. I absolutely love it. Be sure to head over to tsus.store, guys. In the meantime, by the way, get your Beamer Rattler 2023, your Beamer Ball stuff. Get everything you need ahead of kickoff. Really, really pumped for that. Really, really pumped for the merchandise stuff and everything we're doing. And so y'all head over in the meantime to tsus.store and get your merch today. Austin Gregory says he was a target of Lamont, according to message boards. Okay. Really quickly, I'll get to this. Austin Hicks, curious to know why Chris is so high on Tennessee. I see them having a drop-off this year. They were only good last year because of Hooker, Hyatt, and Tillman with not so good defense, and they lost all of them. And I'll tell you this, Austin, I'll go much more in detail on this tomorrow because on tomorrow's show, a really fun one, I am, every single year I print out the helmet schedule, and I do wins and losses, projected records for every single SEC team, right? Every single SEC team pick the SEC East-West champion, and now with yours truly going to SEC Media Days, I have even more incentive to do that now. Well, just briefly, though, why am I so high on Tennessee? I don't think Tennessee's going to win the SEC East. I don't think Tennessee's going to be an 11-win team. But I think with Josh Heupel, what's been proven is this. Let me just say this. They've got a lot to prove. Tennessee could take a step back, no doubt. But with Joe Milton, they still have weapons on the outside. Defensively, they should be better. That game being in Knoxville, they've had that one circled all season. I'm not normally a believer in like revenge type of games, but I think Tennessee is going to play their best football game, arguably the season in that game. And I'd be stunned. It's possible. I listed it a toss-up game. I'd be stunned if South Carolina went into Knoxville, what's historically been a house of horrors, and gotten the W. All right, he joins us now 1:15 each and every single Thursday. I go on his show on Mondays, and I was telling you guys, if you would have tuned into his show on Monday, you would have already known that I was picking a win in week 1 against North Carolina. You wouldn't have had to wait until yesterday, but really excited to chat with him, the host of Offsides with Mark Ryan, the man himself. Mark Ryan, he joins us. Mark, what is going on, my friend? Appreciate you taking the time. What's up?
Man, congrats on the new digs. Congrats on the new studio. Life is good, man. Wonderful to be here with you guys.
Mark, it's on me. Hold on 1 second, Mark. Hold on 1 second. Here we go. Mark, testing 1-2 on Mark Ryan.
Can you hear me?
Yes. That was my bad. I had the audio going through my MacBook, not to the headphones. What is up?
Congrats on the new digs, man. Congrats on the new digs. Great to catch up with you guys, man. And Chris, I got to tell you, my boss had me do a couple of promos for the show today, right? He said, Mark, we're going to air these promos on some of our other stations. You know, just put a hook in there to get people to listen to your show. And so I was thinking about this, something you just said. The thing that I always hear, right, is thanks, Mark. And it's always the same reason. Thanks for giving the upstate something it never had but always needed. Somebody who would call it right down the line on Clemson and South Carolina, praise them and criticize them where warranted. The upstate never had that before, right? And so we've kind of slid into that role. And yesterday, man, you know, I gotta be honest with you, man. Not that you need to earn points with me, but you earn points with the Mississippi State pick. I don't agree, but you earn points with it because that's not easy to do. You know, that's a game, Chris, that literally 100% of Gamecock fans have in the win column. Not because they're right, but because that needs to be in the win column for them to achieve their goals that year. So it's not easy, man. It's not easy to be Jim Carrey and liar and not tell a lie, right? To go against what you're thinking. And I really tip my cap to you, man, for being willing to jump out there and make that pick. Now I'm fascinated with the why. Will Rogers is that good to you, right? He's that good to you. Will Rogers advantage over Spencer Rattler?
Well, and Mark, first things first again. Appreciate you taking the time. And I'll say this on that pick. It's one of those where, Mark, I'll tell you, there's a process for me for sitting down and locking in predictions. It's not as simple as just win-loss, whatever. Okay, it's done. Like, I sit down and sort of just whatever comes to me, that's what I go with. So I didn't go into that expecting, okay, I'm going to pick Mississippi State as a loss. And I heard people talk about it all preseason that this is arguably the biggest trap game on South Carolina's schedule. Thought, okay, whatever. As I sat down and looked at the schedule, and admittedly, I'll say this, Mark, and I have no problem with people disagreeing because Mississippi State, you know what? Rest in peace, the Pirate. They may not be very good this year. But, Mark, I've watched South Carolina football long enough to know, and it's college football, man. Like, since when does it go chalk? Since when does it go exactly as you expect? So I do think Will Rogers, I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. I just don't think Mississippi State falls off this cliff, like, because it's so easy to write them off because, Mike Leach passed, they're donezo. I think, honestly, Mark, I look at Mississippi State as North Carolina with better lines of scrimmage. They've got a high-quality quarterback. They've got SEC athletes up front. I don't think South Carolina, as it looks like we just lost Mark Ryan here. What just happened? All right, we're going to get Mark to jump back in here. I'm not sure exactly what just happened. Let's see. Let me shoot Mark a text. I don't know if it's his. It might be his Wi-Fi. It's got to be his Wi-Fi. It's not my Wi-Fi. Okay, we await Mark Ryan talking about the Mississippi. Here he is. Okay, talking about the Mississippi State pick. Okay, sorry about that, Mark. I'm not sure if that was you or me.
Think it was on my end, brother. My bad.
You're
My
good.
bad.
You're good.
Sorry
Anyways,
about that.
I was just saying, I view Mississippi State as UNC with better lines of scrimmage. And I think South Carolina has real deficiencies in those areas. And I think when you have those deficiencies, you find the inconsistencies. And so it would not surprise me after the Georgia game, you're beat up. To me, this has noon game at Willie B written all over it. And similar to Mizzou last year, I just would not be surprised if early on in the season, you're still trying to figure things out offensively. Mississippi State will, they're not going to run the air raid, but Will Rogers is still a very, very good quarterback, right? You still got questions in the secondary as well. It just would not shock me, my friend. It would not shock me at all.
You know what, brother? I'm going to bring you into a UF anecdote, but it applies very much to South Carolina here, okay? When my buds and I were in college at the University of Florida, we had this theory on road games, man. Whenever there wasn't a big road game, Chris, Spurrier would always come out wearing the orange pants, okay? He always did it when it wasn't a big road game, right? When it was like at Kentucky or something. Or remember, Arkansas wasn't very good. So you're at Arkansas and Spurrier comes out with the orange pants, and we'd always be like, it's an orange pants game. Oh, my God. You know what happens in an orange pants game. And so that just became a phrase. It's an orange pants game because we knew that the team was going to come out flat in that game. At Florida State, you come out wearing the blue pants or the white pants, right? You always came out. And Spurrier always did that in the non-big games. And so what you're telling me is that Mississippi State at home in a noon game is an orange pants game or whatever the color would be for games that South Carolina does not get up for. And you know it when you see it, and sometimes you can just put it on the schedule. Conversely, though, Chris, has there ever been a more amped, hyped player in a single game than Spencer Rattler will be that week 1 against North Carolina? I mean, you've got, outside of Caleb Williams, the golden boy of college football in Drake May, against the guy who was the golden boy, trying to still show he is the golden boy, but has largely been forgotten in NFL draft circles, and that's why he's back at South Carolina this year. Have you ever seen or thought of or conjured up in your mind a better or bigger I'm back, how you like me now moment than Spencer Rattler has in that game, right? The kid versus the forgotten kid, that's the matchup. And if I'm Spencer Rattler, I'm exploding with enthusiasm for that one.
Yeah, and I think that chip on the shoulder, Mark, I was just going to say, I think that's something that is going to help him out-duel Drake May and get that win week 1. First thing, Mark, that before we go any further, I want to congratulate you and Diesel on being, please, I was actually trying to look it up and I could not find the tweet. You guys have been nominated for the best sports show, I believe, in the state of South Carolina. You and Rob Brown, by the way. The Fan Upstate is crushing. So let the people know, just in case they do not, I want to take some time to recognize you, recognize Diesel also. Rob Brown and Lonzo do a great job. But take the floor for a moment, my man, and shine because you guys deserve
it. Chris, number 1, thank you very, very much. Number 2, Chris, please don't post this portion of the video, okay? Because I'm about to just shoot straight with you. I'm about to just shoot straight with you here, okay?
Okay.
That award is not a focus of our show, okay? You will see when you follow our accounts 2 very different priorities with the shows on our station. Why is it not a priority for our show? Well, our management wants us to take part in that, so I do it, Chris. But I get the sense that there's only 2 or 3 shows in the whole state who submit to that, right? They have an award, Sportscaster of the Year. Wouldn't you think Don Munson or Todd Ellis would win Sportscaster of the Year, right? The issue is you got to pay into the South Carolina Broadcasters Association to be eligible for these awards, right? So you see no shows from our competition that are up for it. You see no shows from 107.5 The Game that are up for it. 107.5 The Game has a great show. Chris, you have a great show. Why are you not up for Sportscaster of the Year? You know why? Because you don't pay in to the South Carolina Broadcasters Association. You don't pay into that. And as a result of that, there's just a disagreement there, Chris. Like, nowhere on the award does it say best show in the state. The word state doesn't appear anywhere there. Okay. And it's called Best Sports Talk Show. and it's the best sports talk show among those members who are members of the South Carolina Broadcasters Association because they pay to be a member of the South Carolina Broadcast Association. So it puts a different paint job on things, right? But Chris, I'm never going to blow smoke at you. We're one of two finalists. Great. We may have been the only two shows that submitted for it. You know what I'm saying? so like, to me, that's not a focus of our show. Okay. And whether we got first or second place, Chris, it's based on a 4-minute submission. Would you think you can determine the best show by a 4-minute submission? Would you think that or no?
And I'd say anybody can have a great 4 minutes. Can you do it consistently day in, day out for 4 hours?
So it's like you put 10, 30-second highlights in there, and whoever has the best 4-minute submission wins. But Chris, you know as well as I do that the best show is determined by ratings, revenue, downloads over a 12-month period. And that's why, Chris, no matter what happens, you're not going to hear me mention that at all. And it's just a very, very, very different philosophy between the two shows at our station. Again, I'm like Jim Carrey. You're like Jim Carrey, man. We can't tell a lie. I've got to shoot straight with you about that. If management tells me they want me to participate, I'll participate. But I'm absolutely not going to crow on that. And, the fact that you congratulated me on that, I always appreciate the kind words, Chris. What I appreciate more than anything else is the growth of our show and, folks liking the show and what they hear and us continuing to be number one at our station in ratings, revenue, and downloads. There's nothing the SCBA can give me that trumps that. I'm kind of like Nikola Jokic, Chris Phillips in this sense. He lost his NBA Finals MVP award. He lost it because it wasn't important to him. Because what was important to him was winning the title with his teammates, right? NBA Finals MVP, some subjective award that somebody gives out, it didn't mean anything to him. And I'm kind of the same way, man. I'm not interested in being one of two, one of three. I'm interested in consistently being great and setting records. So more than you bargained for, brother. I see it. But I think you are deserving and warranted of earning some awards as well.
Well, Mark, I can say this. What I respect about you is you don't need external validation to know that the work you're doing is great. I respect that. And you are determining the value of your work based off the value you are driving for the end consumer. That, my friend, I can respect to a great degree for sure. And I operate the same exact way. All right, getting back to football, Mark, you talked about you had a lot of respect for me for the game-by-game predictions for the first 6 games. I have locked in my game-by-game predictions for the final 6 and there and such the entire season. Would you like to hear those picks for the final 6 games?
Oh, absolutely.
This graphic has not dropped yet.
I'd like to hear your picks for the first 6 games. I think North Carolina will win.
Yeah, we'll go down the list. We'll go down the list. So this graphic will drop after TDC today. It has not dropped yet. These are my game-by-game predictions. Yeah, go ahead.
Am I able to give you a quick agree or disagree with each game?
Yeah, I was going to say, do you want to me run through the whole thing or game by game, just agree, disagree, and we'll go?
Let's
go game by game. That's fine. Okay, we'll go game by game. UNC, I've got the Gamecocks winning 31-27.
UNC, I have the Tar Heels winning 34-30.
Wow. Okay. All right. We're off to a hot start. Mark, get this. I've got South Carolina week 2 beating Furman 35-20, though. A lot of people balked at that score. I think South Carolina, after an emotional week 1, maybe kind of sputters out the gate, and Furman is not your typical FCS opponent. 35-20 win, though.
Orange Pants game, 38-26, South Carolina over Furman.
Week 3 against Georgia. Mark, as you mentioned, I love the way you put it. Jim Carrey and liar, cannot tell a lie. This is me telling the brutal, honest truth. This is a question of how many times does South Carolina cross the 50? I think Georgia's still head and shoulders above South Carolina, especially in the line of scrimmage. 41-10 Bulldogs.
Man, yeah, Georgia's really good, man. But I think this is the game where you're really going to see how much South Carolina has grown under Shane Beamer. You're telling me they haven't grown that much, Chris. I mean, that's what you're telling me. So the lines of scrimmage aren't great for South Carolina. In order for them to achieve their goals, they have to improve rush offense, rush defense, right? offensive line rankings, defensive line rankings. South Carolina's lines, Chris, are regarded as either the worst or second or third worst in the SEC, offensive and defensive line. I think we're going to see an improvement there. And I'm going to go, Chris, 34-20, Georgia over South Carolina. So a respectable showing, but not a dub. I do think they fare better than you do, though.
Okay, so the following week, as we all know, most notably, I've picked the Gamecocks to fall in an upset 24-17 to Mississippi State.
By the way, Beamer Rattler are not winning the presidential election that you hope they win. if they drop a 41-10 egg against Georgia, man, you know as well as I do. Come on, man, come on.
I'll tell you this, Mark. We'll interject right here. Maybe this is a conversation for after the predictions, and we can save it as such. I think South Carolina was a better football team last year, and they lost 48-7. So in Athens, I got to see South Carolina be able to compete in the trenches against the Dogs before I give them any sort of credit. That's just where I stand on it. Anyways, we can keep it going and follow up on that after the fact. But anyways,
okay, so
I got
Mississippi State.
Yeah,
Mississippi State. I'll go 30-14 Gamecocks.
I love it. The following week, Gamecocks go to Knoxville. Mark, I labeled this as a toss-up game solely because of what South Carolina did last year. I don't know how you can say 100%, right? Don't sleep on Beamer. This, to me, though, is the least likely chance of victory in the toss-ups. I think Tennessee, they've got this one circled. I think the Gamecocks start to show signs of improvement and progression. And I'm not a moral victory guy, but I think it's an offensive shootout. But Tennessee, no chance they lose to the Gamecocks to what happened last year, 45-28 Vols.
What is this, Chris? Are you trying to temper expectations for the whole fan base? Yeah. Okay, Chris, riddle me this. How do you know what Tennessee is this year? How do you know what they are? Okay, you saw what they were year one of Josh Heupel.
Right.
Year one of Josh Heupel looked a lot like year one for Shane Beamer, year one for Billy Napier. And then you saw a really good year two, but the three most important principal people there, Hyatt, Tillman, and Hooker, are no longer there. So you have Heupel's offense, but you don't know that you have the pieces that can execute that offense. And outside of a howitzer for an arm, what do you know that Joe Milton gives you? How do you know that Tennessee is the second best team in the East? We mentioned it, Chris. For Shane Beamer, year one was fourth place in the East. Year two was third place in the East. Year three, the goal has got to be second place in the East. Furthermore, year three is always the year. Always. Read my lips. Always. Always the year, Chris, where coaches that are going to pop. Just about always in the modern era, right? I know Gamecock fans are going to throw Spurrier at me, but in the modern era, that's how this works. So, Chris, I don't see why that's not a winnable game for the Gamecocks. Are they going to win? Maybe not. But I'm going to say 38-33 Tennessee. Very competitive game.
House of horrors for the Gamecocks historically, Mark Ryan. And I'll say this again. Do we know for a fact what Tennessee's going to be? No. I believe in Josh Heupel's offensive system. Can Joe Milton throw the changeup is the biggest question mark, but it's a quarterback-friendly system. I think he flourishes. I think that could arguably be the game Tennessee plays their best game of the season. I just, again, after last year, all the focus on that game, I don't see Tennessee laying an egg in that one. The bye week comes, and to your point, am I trying to temper expectations, whatever? Well, South Carolina better turn it on in the second half, right? Bye week comes at a great time. Gamecocks have the Gators.
Can I get my record so far, Chris? What is my record so far for the Gamecocks?
Your record is 4-2. Excuse me. You got the loss to UNC. So 1-1, 1-2, 2-2, 3-2. Yes, 3-2. Okay, 3-2. And I am at 2-3.
I got 2-3. I think I got 2-3 because I got a loss to UNC, a loss to Georgia, and a loss to Tennessee, right?
Yes, you're right. Okay. So we are identical with record.
Okay.
I think you just don't like my scores all that much. Anyways, so we both have 2-3. Bye week comes at a great time. South Carolina is trying to figure some things out again. I think that 28 points offensively, I think the offense under Dowell Loggins kind of gets going a little bit. Florida comes to Willie B the following week. The same way that was revenge for Tennessee. I think it's the same for South Carolina. I've called it the most important game of the year, Mark Ryan. I'm not sure if you saw that. I think it is because of where it sits on the schedule. I think the Gamecocks take care of the Gators. I don't believe in Graham Mertz, and I think Billy Napier can be a good coach for Florida if they give him the opportunity to stay there for quite a while, the way they're recruiting. But this Florida team, I think, is probably finishing 6th in the East, 41-20 Gamecocks over Florida.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chris, full permission to post this clip. Okay, full
Go
permission.
ahead, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the comments section, who am I a fan of? First person gets a tip of the cap. Who am I a fan of? Okay, let me get your picks. Who am I a fan of? Give me that right in the comments here below. Do you know? Where did I go to school? Who am I a fan of? What do you guys know about me on that? All right. Well, here is the skinny, Chris. Here is the skinny. Thank you, Austin Gregory. Florida has no shot in this game. Absolutely, positively no shot in this game. Nobody talks about things like bye weeks, Chris. That is imperative. The fact that you get to press reset, Florida does not. The quarterback battle, no comparison. Graham Mertz, Spencer Rattler, give me a break, man. No comparison. Florida's got a great recruiting class coming in. Maybe by 2025, if Billy Napier's still there, that'll mean something, Chris. But it's not going to mean something right now with a veteran quarterback playing at home, off of the bye, the fever pitch of that South Carolina rivalry. I think you're well on it, Chris, with your prediction. I'm going to go 37-17, South Carolina. The Gators have no shot against the Gamecocks this year. 34-6 last year, Chris, notwithstanding the motivational factor that has with the Gamecocks. That was South Carolina's worst game of the year, and credit Florida for creating that worst game of the year. But Anthony Richardson is not walking through that door. The Gators have, you can look through their chance, Chris. No chance against the Gamecocks, 37-17.
And to your point, Mike Ryan, I just wanted to point this out. South Carolina football is 15-2 coming off of a bye week since 2009. So they have been very, I mean, to your point, just the impact of what a bye week can do for a football team. On that note, so this started today, right? My second half prediction. That was my first half. And we're both at 3-3. I think South Carolina parlays that Florida win. Streaks are made to be broken. They take down Mizzou 26-20 in Como. It finally happens to spark the second half of the season. What say you?
Missouri sucks. Eli Drinkwitz talks like he's been Drinkwitzing all day.
They've beaten the Gamecocks 4 in a row, Mark Ryan.
But what does that have to do with this year? Chris, you put too much stock in, like, the Gamecocks always do this every year, and they've lost 4 times in a row. What the hell does that have to do with this year, brother? Nothing.
Well, I'm picking the W. I'm just giving you some historical significance of the game.
No, Missouri sucks, dude. Eli Drinkwitz is going to be firmly on the hot seat, if not totally fired.
Does Mizzou beat Florida this year?
Possibly. 31-13 Gamecocks. 31-13 Gamecocks. Easy, comfortable win. You're just better, Chris. You're just better. Don't get caught up in this every year this happens. That's nothing to do with this year.
Okay, so we're both at 4-3. We're both at 4-3. The game picks are a little bit different. We're both at 4-3. The road trip to College Station, Texas A&M, I got burned like so many people last year, Mark. I had the Aggies like 10-2. They were terrible. I think those 5-star recruits are a year older. You insert Bobby Petrino into College Station. I'm not saying they're world beaters this year. I'm not going to pick them to be a 10-win team. I think this is a tough one for South Carolina at Kyle Field. I got the Aggies 45-24.
Chris, there is a game every single year that the Gamecocks win that they have no business winning, okay? Now, talent-wise, that might be the case here. But Jimbo Fisher has not shown that he knows how to deal or best utilize that talent. Give me the upset of the year, okay? Give me a very crucial and critical 26-21 win for the Gamecocks. Texas A&M driving late. They're inside the South Carolina 10. And the Gamecocks get a character-building, first and goal stop, right? 4 downs inside the 10. Gamecocks win in College Station 26-21.
26-21. Okay, so I'm at 4-4. You're at 5-3. The next week, Jacksonville State, JSU's first year at FBS. I've got Carolina getting a big 48-10 win, dominating fashion to start the month. I believe that's the first weekend in November. I think they started in style, 48-10 win at home.
Gamecocks 56-2.
I love that. Big win either way. The following week, Vanderbilt comes to town. Gamecocks have won 13 in a row. Mark, I tell you this, my original pick was 42-17. And you know what? You're going to fault me. It's totally fine. But these games against Vandy, for some reason, they're always like weirdly close. Like even last year, Carolina won by 11. And you look back at the games at home, they've just been strangely close. I like Clark Lee. At some point, Vandy's going to snap the streak. It will not be this year. Carolina wins, but it's closer than maybe folks prefer. 31-24, Carolina.
So, Chris, you know how like we love to use transitive property, which is if A beats B and B beats C. The thing that destroyed transitive property last year was in a couple of weeks' time, South Carolina beats Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt beats Florida. And then Florida castrates the Gamecocks on national television. Like, how did that make any sense? You know what I mean?
Was the Florida beat down to the Gamecocks was after they lost to Vandy? Is that right?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
But what I can tell you, Chris, is it was within a few weeks of one another.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
It was absolutely within a few weeks of one another. Is when that took place. There's no chance that Vanderbilt is going to beat South Carolina. You know, at Vanderbilt, man, they have to overcome so much. The number one thing they need to overcome, Chris, is themselves. Not been invested in sports. They allow Gamecocks, LSU fans, Georgia fans to sell out their stadium to where it's a road game for Vandy in their home stadium. The Gamecocks would never allow that. The Florida Gators would never allow that, right? So there is a major seismic culture shift that Clark Lee is attempting. That doesn't happen overnight. They're not winning this game, Chris, and it's not going to be close. I will go South Carolina 30-10.
By the way, on a side note, Florida beat A&M last year, beat South Carolina, and then lost to Vandy. So what a wild just couple of weeks that was for the Gators. The following week, Kentucky comes to town. And, Mark, you picked Texas A&M as the game where South Carolina kind of shocks the world, the one game, every single year it feels they have. So I think Kentucky's actually that game. At home, I think the Cats are favored. I could see them being an 8-win team at this point. A lot of people are high on Kentucky with Devin Leary, Liam Cohen. Some folks are picking them to be that number 3 team in the East. I think South Carolina most likely under the lights. Shane Beamer's teams are different in late November than early in season. I think that shows yet again Gamecocks get their 7th win. So I had them losing 3 in a row early in the season. I got them winning 3 in a row late. Give me Carolina 34, Kentucky 24.
What's my record so far, Chris?
You are at
I was 2-3 at the bye.
Yes. Let's see. 2-3 at the bye, 3-3, 4-3, 5-3, 6-3. So are you 7-3? Is that right? Because you have wins over Florida, Mizzou, A&M, and Jacksonville State and Vandy. So you've got 5 wins in a row right now.
Yeah.
5 wins in a row.
Chris, we were building up the Gamecocks fans' faith in me, and now it's going to take a terrible tumble, Chris. Now it's going to take a terrible tumble. For this reason, Chris, just like the Gamecocks win one every single year they're not supposed to, they lose one every single year they're not supposed to. You have that game being Mississippi State. I have that game being Kentucky. They're feeling great about themselves. They've been on this win streak. Devin Leary comes to town. Spencer Rattler due for a 3 or 4 reception game somewhere. I'm going to say it happens here against Mark Stoops' defense. I think it's one of those incredibly frustrating games where Gamecock fans feel as though they should win the game. We were the better team. We kicked ourselves in the foot, so on and so forth. And it might be a game that special teams wins for the Gamecocks, Chris. I think the games are kicking themselves for, and I think Kentucky comes in and gets a 24-20 win.
Okay, so we both have 7-4 going into the season finale against Clemson, which this will be a fun one for obvious reasons because of your show, and you hear it from both Gamecock fans, Clemson fans. No matter what the pick is for you, you're going to hear it. But believe it or not, Mark, this is a game that I look at. I had a weird feeling last year this time of year, which is what led me to pick the upset victory. Right? I mean, I went against the grain, right? Nobody else, I don't even think in Gamecock circles, unless you were just a Garnet Glasses Gamecock fan, was picking the upset. I've been searching for that feeling, Mark, all offseason. I just have not found it. I think Garrett Riley is maybe the best OC in college football. I think Cade Klubnik will be much, much better. Their defense is still one of the best in college ball. Clemson might come into this game 10-1. I think the days of blowouts in this rivalry, for the most part, are over. I think the Gamecocks are getting closer to where Clemson is from a roster standpoint. But I give the edge to the Tigers, man. I got 35-27 Clemson in the finale.
You mean the offensive coordinator, Garrett Riley, that South Carolina wanted? Okay.
Whether they wanted him or did not want him, I look at it this way, Mark. We don't have to go back down that rabbit hole, but I look at it this way. Garrett Riley was the most sought-after OC when the job opened up at South Carolina, right?
By everybody.
If Garrett Riley would have come to Columbia, Gamecock fans would be singing his praises as he is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I can tolerate a lot of things, but I don't like hypocrisy, Mark, and I will not tolerate it. Just because a guy doesn't come to your school, it doesn't mean he all of a sudden sucks. Garrett Riley's still one of the best offensive minds. I'm not sitting here telling you they're going to score 50 a game, but to insinuate that because Garrett Riley didn't come to Carolina and he went to Clemson, he all of a sudden sucks. I just don't buy that. You know what I mean? I don't buy that. I still, to this day, I'll say right now, I wish Garrett Riley would have come to South Carolina. And I don't care how that sounds. I hope Dowell Loggins makes me eat my words. But right now, based off known commodities, Garrett Riley's a safer bet than Dowell Loggins. That is the furthest thing from a hot take. Anyways, I don't think Clemson's the liability offensively that they were last year. Their quarterback's not going to go 8 for 29 in the game. And I think South Carolina, again, the deficiencies in the line of scrimmage, I think could show in this one. Clemson very good in the trenches. I think it's a very close back and forth game. 35-27, though, I got Clemson.
So, Chris, last year you had a funny feeling. This year, you have a funny feeling because of the indigestion forming about what's going to come the Gamecocks' way in this particular game. All right. I commend you for being willing to make that pick, Chris, because you're exactly right. Look, at home, Beamer and Rattler are not going to let the Gamecocks get blown out. But I was at the game and this last year, Chris, and I could not believe the lax, laissez-faire, party beach atmosphere that was laced with arrogance at Clemson. And I kept tweeting at second quarter, third quarter, this place feels like this place feels like a Sunday stroll. If y'all don't wake the hell up, you're going to end the L. You're going to wear the L. 4 minutes to go in the game, Chris. The scoreboard operator's playing tricky, still like it's some party. You know what I mean? And the atmosphere, the vibe, everything was off. It was off from the team. It was off from the fans. It was off from the scoreboard operator. Like nobody was taking the Gamecocks seriously, and that disrespect fueled the victory. That mistake is not going to happen this time. By the end of the year, Clemson's offense under Riley and Cade Klubnik are going to be at peak performance. And it doesn't matter that South Carolina might be the same. The talent wins out in the end, and I think the lines are not yet where they need to be for South Carolina to win more than a one-off against Clemson, okay? I will go Clemson 28-14 over South Carolina in the final game of the year. That's a 2-touchdown win. Defense shows up, and major pride on the line for Clemson in this one. I got South Carolina finishing 7-5.
So we both have 7-5 for South Carolina after all that. When you said I was trying to temper expectations, here we are, Mark. We both look up, and it's a 7-5 season, which I'll tell you this, Mark, that feels right to me. As badly as I'd like to see 8-4, I think it's doable. As badly as I'd like to see it, 7-5 to me just feels about right for this team. Like I told you, Mark Ryan, and I don't know if you disagree or agree, I think the Gamecocks have more question marks than last year. I really do. I think they have more question marks. You've got a brand new OC. I think the line of scrimmage, I think your offensive line's weaker. I think there's reason to believe the run game could be worse. Like truly, which is crazy because what did you talk about, Mark Ryan? South Carolina was the only team
in college football
outside of the top 100 in rush offense, rush defense. I think they're going to be outside of the top 100 again. And you just can't cheat death forever. Like, I think a 7-5 season, and I know, Mark, we've already talked about what's success, what's not. So I'm not going to sit here and reset expectations and tell you that 7-5 is a great success. But I will say this. I think 7-5 with, and I know year 3 is the ascension year. I look at this as sort of from a talent standpoint, roster standpoint, a gap year in the trenches because they're recruiting at a high level. They've recruited at a high level. They've got talent on the roster. So I think the biggest thing, what's the biggest kicker that can make this be an 8 or 9 win season? Does that young talent come along quicker than we expect? If that young talent can come along and make some unexpected impacts, this thing can get turned sideways. But right now, based off of what we know, 7-5 feels right to me.
So last year, Chris, the stat was there was no other team that finished with a winning record that was outside of the top 100 in rush offense and rush defense. The Gamecocks were the only team that did that, right? By sheer practice, Chris, I got to think that they're better than that. By sheer willpower, they're better than that. Running backs these days, Chris, are a dime a dozen. You can develop another one, right? At the same token, as we identified, 7-5 is disappointing. 8-4 is a success. You and I both have South Carolina within one game of success. You have them losing to Mississippi State as the surprise. I have them losing to Kentucky as the surprise. I have them beating Texas A&M as the surprise. You have them beating North Carolina as a mild surprise to me. We both centered on 7-5. Any team that goes 7-5, Chris, can go 8-4. They can
For
get
sure.
there.
Absolutely.
Right? They can get there. And we've highlighted some of the games in which that can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, Mark. That was a lot of fun, by the way. That was a lot of fun. I appreciate you rolling with that because I know that making your predictions on the fly is not the easiest thing in the world, but that was a lot of fun, Mark. That was a lot of fun for sure. So I'm excited again. We'll talk a lot more about it starting next week. Offense, defense, special team, really getting the nitty gritty. But again, to me, 7-5 feels about right. My best case scenario, Mark, though, for this team, I think 8-4 is the best case. Is that too low of a ceiling?
Yes, it is. How many unwinnable games are on the schedule in your mind, Chris? Unwinnable.
This is how I categorize it. I'm putting it. So when I did my wins, toss-ups, losses, the only game I put an L next to in heavy black ink is Georgia. But there are also so many toss-ups on this schedule. Some of them I favor more towards the loss column. For example, Tennessee. I would throw Tennessee in the loss column, me personally. And I would throw Florida in the win column. So that puts me at 4-2 with 6 toss-ups. The likelihood that South Carolina goes 5-1 in those 6 games, Mark, I think is slim and none. I have not seen that level of consistency from this program, from this roster, from this football team, however you want to phrase it. I have not seen that consistency yet. I think 4-2 is very doable. I think 3-3 is what I'm expecting. So that's kind of how I phrase it, Mark.
So I think 9-3 is the ceiling, and I think 5-7 is the floor. What did my prediction do, Chris? Split the difference.
Yeah.
Right? Split the difference. Everything goes wrong, 5-7. Everything goes right, 9-3. And everything going right means that Nick Harbor is a huge part of the offense, right? That you found playmakers on the offensive and defensive line. You found a running back, right? So I do think the ceiling is 9-3. I do think the floor is 5-7. 5-7 might look like Spencer Rattler got injured, right? You can't run the ball a lick, and now you got Luke Doty in there, and you can't run the football, right? I mean, that's what 5-7 might look like. 9-3, you found some solutions to all that stuff, right? And so I think that's what makes it exciting, Chris. That's why we love college football, because even when you think you know your team, then the Gamecocks pull off in November from last year, and it's like, well, where did this come from? 2 top 10 wins. Where did this come from? The same month that Florida happened, they pull off 2 top 10 wins, right? So that's why we love college football, man. It is nothing if not unpredictable. Even you and I, Chris, I mean, I have a range of 5-7 to 9-3. So I mean, that's why we love it. It's an incredible time. It's an incredible excitement, and it's realize, Gamecock fans, that year 3 is the year where you typically get the answer on your head coach. What is Shane Beamer going to show you in year 3? That he is the long-term guy, because Chris, this is the inconvenient truth that Gamecock fans don't want to know. If Beamer finishes 7-6, he'll have the same record as Muschamp through year 3. Okay? Through year 3. At that point, the comparisons with Muschamp start to become inevitable. So if you and I are right, Chris, and they go 7-5, and let's say they wear the L in the bowl game, you're now even with Muschamp through year 3. And that's not where Beamer wants to be.
So let me ask you this, Mark. To overachieve, we'll say, or to hit the 8-4 mark, which I think you and I would both agree is success and is the ascension in year 3 that we're looking for, right? You've got A&M as the improbable upset, whatever. I'll say of the games against UNC, Georgia, Tennessee, and Clemson, which of those 4 do you think it's most likely that they get sort of that, let's call it the signature win of the season, put kind of that exclamation point on the year and show those signs of progression that, again, like you mentioned, you want to see in year 3?
So you had A&M, Tennessee.
Because, well, you've already picked A&M as a W. So outside of
Right.
those, I said UNC, Tennessee, Georgia, and Clemson. Of the
UNC.
games you picked as losses, which one do you think is most likely to flip?
I think UNC, but I do think them beating. I see them being really competitive, Chris, against Tennessee. So I'm going to go UNC in that one because of Spencer Rattler's motivation. Folks are getting mad on the chat that I would compare Beamer to Muschamp. It's not me making the comparison. The records are making the comparison. Beamer is tied with Muschamp through year 2. They're both 15-11. If Beamer goes 7-6 in year 3, they would both be 22-17 after 3 years at South Carolina. So it's not me making the comparison, right? You don't want Beamer to be identical to Muschamp after 3 years. The feeling is that he far exceeds Muschamp. You hated Muschamp, you love Beamer. Well, at some point, all of the rosiness and blowing smoke up your skirt comes to an end. At some point, you got to look at the results. And history shows that you do that with head coaches in year 3. Chris, I'll close with this. In no way, shape, or form is Beamer on the hot seat, but he is under pressure for the reasons we just stated.
Mark, last thing before we get you out of here, because that was absolutely electric. Does the 7-5, now we've gone through it, I'm sure this is the first time you've locked in your predictions for the Gamecocks, and obviously you have the freedom to change them, so I don't want to make it sound like you couldn't go back and revise some things, but does it surprise you at all that you fall at 7-5? Because I feel like there's a difference of us just kind of talking about it and looking at how many they need to win this year, but then you go through and you break it down game by game, and sometimes you sort of surprise yourself with, oh, damn, I actually ended up at 7-5. I didn't expect that. Are you surprised by that pick at all? Did you thought your overall picks win total could be higher? Because again, Mark, when you look at games on an individual basis, that's one thing. When you look at a schedule and how they fall and momentum in college football, bye weeks, that type of stuff matters. And I think it can change your outlook slightly.
100%, Chris. The reality is, Chris, everything is out there for South Carolina. And it feels like when the season ended and in February and March, there was this incredible optimism surrounding this team, right? Since that particular time, it feels like that's taken a bit of a hit. All of these analytics projections are out. It feels like the Gamecocks are filled with question marks. But the good news for Gamecock fans is a lot of those questions are going to get answered, right? A lot of those are going to get answered. Dowell Loggins is going to find what works. Rattler is going to look closer to the guy that finished the year than the one that began the year last year. And Nick Harbor is going to be an incredibly explosive player, and you're going to find answers to some of those. So to me, Can South Carolina exceed 7-5? My prediction, yes, they can. What's the biggest key? For Beamer to replicate what he did last November and for the team to be hitting its peak, adjusting to Dowell Loggins' offense, Rattler playing his best football. You found a running game. Offensive line is starting to play some solid football in November. If that is the case, South Carolina absolutely can exceed expectations.
Mark Ryan of the Fan Upstate, Offsides with Mark Ryan. Check him out every single day, Monday through Friday, 3 to 7. Mark, again, thank you so much, my friend. Wish you nothing but continued success. Looking forward to chatting with you guys next week. And like I said, that was an electric segment, so thank you so much.
Hey, guys, we appreciate it so much. Invite you guys to follow me on Twitter, if you'd be so kind, at Mark Ryan on Air. That's at MARC Ryan on Air. Chris, congratulations on all the blessings in your life, my friend. We look forward to talking to you next week.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you, Mark. We'll talk soon. Great stuff from Mark Ryan. Guys, we're going to go ahead and jump into a quick break. On the other side, though, we're going to open it up for our Q&A Power Hour. I want to hear from you, 843-790-3377. Your questions, comments, calls, and more on the other side of the break. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow.
Muscle Dougie Ho. Muscle Dougie Ho, Dougie Ho.
Whoa. All right, guys, we are back. Apologies there. Was posting the record prediction to social media. Let's get this back set up. Okay. All right, we're back here on this Thursday, July the 6th, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. With that, our Q&A Power Hour has officially begun as we are taking your questions, your comments, your calls as well. 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377 here on this Thursday, July the 6th, 2023. I want to say thank you to Mark Ryan for taking the time. That was an electric segment. I did not expect Mark to give his actual game-by-game score predictions, but that is exactly what he did. As you can imagine, the Big Cock Club Discord is going crazy right now with the picks. Let's jump to the phone lines here.
From John Edward.
John Edward, what's going on, my friend? How are you?
Good, just on vacation, bro.
You're on vacation right now?
Yes, yeah, I'm just chilling at the house.
Very nice. Love it, my friend. Also, I'll tell you the
Yeah.
same thing that I told Frank yesterday. I apologize. We got to get your graphic made, my guy. We got to get your – I will take care of that
problem.
later today. Call in tomorrow. We will have it up. What's going on?
No, yeah. No, I just I thought I was telling everyone, I thought I was gonna have my predictions this weekend when I was home, but I decided to go ahead and do it. So here was my predictions, and it may be a little bold, but like, why not be bold? Okay, here we go. Beat North Carolina, beat Furman, lose at Georgia, beat Mississippi State, lose to Tennessee, beat Florida, beat Missouri, lose to A&M, and then beat. So I'm not saying beat one more time. I was going to say you beat Jacksonville State, Vandy, Kentucky, and Clemson.
So what was the final record?
9-3.
9-3 for the Gamecocks. Okay. And the three losses being to, remind me, Georgia, who else?
Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas A&M.
Okay. All right.
All on the road, but I don't think we'll get blown out by A&M. I don't think that's going to happen, but you haven't won there before. And I know I'm trying to get over what we haven't done in the past, but still, because the games haven't been close in College Station. But it wouldn't shock me. Like, I have this losing A&M, but I'll just say this, it wouldn't shock me if you win there out of the three losses. Wouldn't shock me. But it's just because, like, can you give A&M the benefit of the doubt after coming up, you know? But I think personally Jimbo's overrated, but that's just me, and it'll be interesting, you know, for them to see how those minds work if they fit. So, yeah.
I would sign up for that 9-3 in a heartbeat, my friend. I respect the heck out of that. I think the biggest wins there, obviously taking down UNC. You take down Mizzou, you take down Kentucky, you take down Clemson. I don't know how you call that anything but a fantastic season.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I thought I was going to have them end of the week, but I decided to go ahead and have some downtime. So I'm like, you know what? Like, why not go ahead and just predict the season? So, yeah, today's my last day here in St. Thomas. I'm staying with a buddy from high school, and then I'm actually going to leave tomorrow morning to get back to South Carolina and spend the weekend at home. So I'm leaving tomorrow morning to go back.
I love that. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying yourself, John Everett. It's great to hear from you, obviously, and look forward to keeping the conversation going, man. I appreciate you calling in.
Yeah, what is it? 59 days?
58 days. 58 days away.
58, my bad.
Mm-hmm.
58. Okay. I mean, yeah, and I would say one other thing before I let you go. Hey, enjoy media day. That's really big.
I appreciate that, man. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Hey, no problem. All right, I'll try calling tomorrow because I'm planning to be home sometime in the afternoon.
Yeah, man. Hey, call in. We'll be live. You know it. Sounds good, my guy.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah. All right, thanks. See you,
All right, brother. Be good. Great stuff from John Edward, as always. Let's see. Dave Garrick. How about this? How about our guy Dave, big Cock Club member? My prediction is that UNC edges us in the first game. Wow. That one surprised me. Mark Ryan picking UNC to win. That surprised me. 34-30, he's got North Carolina. Let me go back through your questions, by the way. There's tons of questions here, tons of reactions, things I did not get into. Let's see. Blind Squirrel says, in my opinion, your Gamecocks will be the best team in the East next year, not named Georgia. Okay. You got them finishing second in the East. He also says y'all got an excellent young coach in Beamer. Jonathan Lee says, hard to think Rattler came back to go 7-5. Well, I don't think Rattler came back to stand behind that makeshift offensive line either, Jonathan Lee, but he ain't got a choice. Ethan says, Clemson's defense lost a lot. I think we can hang with them at home and win a close one. That's absolutely, Ethan, a toss-up game. That is a game that could go either way. Absolutely 110% that could go either way. Austin Gregory says, growth isn't linear. 7-5 isn't a step back. I agree. Jonathan Lee says, if nothing else, 8-4, and that I believe Gamecock fans can live with. Chance to get 9 in a bowl game. Absolutely. Ethan says 7 wins is an average season, 8 wins a good season, 9 wins is a great season. I'd agree. Ethan, I agree with you, and going 8-4 is so pivotal. It's so pivotal in this season. It's so pivotal. Absolutely it is. Absolutely. Setting that new floor. John Edwards said, disagree with the Clemson game at home against Bryce. You have the better quarterback in Rattler and wide receiver in Juice Wells. Beat Clemson for their second straight year. Jonathan Lee, teams that wouldn't shock me if we lost to: Georgia, Tennessee, and Clemson. All others are even or should have a shot to win. And y'all know we got an upset every once in a while. Indeed. Brian Dean says, I think this team will shock everyone in 2023. It only takes one big win for a team to get on a roll. That is why I have USC out the gate at 3-0. My goodness. Wow, 3-0. Justin Bryant says, respect for not being just a fanatic. I really don't know what to make of this team. It all depends on all guys, or if guys can step up front. Yeah, I mean, listen, my predictions are probably not – there's going to be a lot of mixed feelings. I was going to say my predictions are probably not going to be all that well received. Just because, you know, you got the loss to Tennessee in there, the loss to Mississippi State, the loss to Clemson that ended. I mean, all in all, guys, I feel like, again, my second half predictions, I've got you going 4-2 in the second half. I mean, I don't think anybody would turn the nose up at 4-2 in the last 6 games, right? But I just call it as I see it, Justin. I just call it as I see it. Absolutely. Let's see. Yeah, Lynn Turner, I got 7-5, 4-4 in SEC play. Brian Dean says, just because our O-line is untested doesn't mean they won't be good. I believe in our players and coaches. Brian, and you know what? Listen. It's funny. We have different types of Gamecock fans in the chat. I respect the hell out of Brian. I respect the hell out of the fact that Brian, I feel like, is always a little bit more optimistic, right? We've got some that are like Coach Ford, a little bit more pessimistic. I try to be right in the middle, guys. I really do. I try to be right in the middle of this thing. And I'll tell you this. I'd rather go into a season picking 7-5 and South Carolina overachieve than me go into it picking 9-3 and the Gamecocks go 7-5. But I tell you, again, 7-5, it feels about right. It does, guys. It does. It does. And I think what this season's going to show, the last 2 weeks of the regular season were great. Here's the problem. People are just forgetting about games against Florida, games against Mizzou, 48-7 of Georgia. Satterfield stunk for sure. He stunk. But it's about the Jimmies and Joes, not the X's and O's. It's the guys on the field making plays. And I think Spencer Rattler and Juice Wells are going to connect a lot this year. But if you can't run the football and you're one-dimensional, how much can they do? And I think that's going to happen, guys. I think a lack of running game, once again, is going to be this team's demise. Let's see. Continuing through your questions. Phone lines are open. 843-790-3377. Big Wash says the new setup is nice. Thank you, Big Wash. I appreciate that. Jonathan Lee, I would agree. Who is second best in the East? So beating or going to compete with Tennessee. Jonathan Lee, full breakdown tomorrow. All right, let's jump to the phone lines here.
Football Frank.
Frank, what is going on, my friend? How are you?
Good. How are you, my man?
I'm doing well. If you look at the screen, I don't know if you can see it. We've got the Football Frank graphic, just as I promised, my guy. I hope you enjoy it.
Star she blows.
Football Frank is on the line officially. What's up, my man?
I saw you getting torn to pieces at the end of the segment yesterday about your pessimism, but I mean, like you saying before. By the way, Mark Ryan, great stuff. People are forgetting in the middle of the season, and they're forgetting 2021, and we haven't really proven anything yet. So I got to back you up on your picks there. In case anybody forgot 2021, we scored 10 points against Kentucky at home. One of those was in garbage time. We barely beat Vandy, and we capped off a win in North Carolina with our fourth quarterback. So you can expand on those stats if you want.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'll just say this, that South Carolina, I mean, they're making great strides under Shane Beamer. And I'll tell you this, too. If you disagree, I mean, I think if most people disagree, they're not disagreeing by much. Like, I always get a good kick out of when people say, you're such an idiot. Like, you're so dumb. Your picks suck. I've got 8-4. It's like we're splitting hairs over one game. Literally one game.
Yeah.
South Carolina very well could go 8-4. South Carolina could go 7-5, and they could beat Clemson. Like, switch up the games how you like. 7-5 feels about right to me. I go the extra step and the extra mile and make it even more fun by locking in scores and all that. And for those who don't realize, and if you don't realize, I don't know where you've been, but these are subject to change, right? It's subject to change that, my scores, obviously, I mean, things are going to change, right? I mean, look at last year. They're subject to change. But 7-5 for me, Frank, it feels right. That feels right to me.
Yeah, 7-5. I could definitely see that because you got to. So I must have one of the wins, one of the losses different because I have us losing to Georgia, Tennessee, Missouri, Texas A&M, and Clemson. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what that fifth. What changes.
I had the Mississippi State. I had the Mississippi State upset. So, but I've got the win. I've got the win over Mizzou, which I actually just posted the graphic on social media for all those who want to see this. It is up there.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah.
Listen, 7-5. It doesn't personally affect me until I start betting money on it. So I'm putting my money on the over 6. So I'm looking at 7-5 as a win. But everybody that's giving you a hard time about what the team has proven. Like in 2022, had we just competed in a workmanlike manner and beaten Arkansas, Missouri, and Florida, and even lose to Tennessee and Clemson, we would have had a better record. We would have been 9-3. So
indeed.
I mean, I don't know what we're still living off these two games that. Listen, I was at the Tennessee game, best night of my life, but I think I'd rather take those other 3 wins and get a better record, 9-3. Then we'll be talking a little differently now. You get those 2 freak wins. Then you blow a 17-point lead against Notre Dame in the bowl game. I mean, had we not had the special teams miracles against Texas A&M and Will Levis wasn't out against Kentucky, we could have went 5-7.
Frank, now you're being really brutally honest. So, and people don't want to hear it. People don't want to hear that, Frank. They don't want to hear that.
I get it, but I will challenge anybody out there to come up with some dollars and put them where I'm putting them because, I bet on what I believe. And right now, the only thing I believe is that we're going to win 7 games. So, I mean, that's to be honest with you. And look, we have a hard schedule in 2023. And I think people are losing that, in the mix. And the reality is the way the dynamics of the league are changing, it's only going to get harder for us, and we're what I would consider a team in transition. So we don't have the foundation that Georgia has and Alabama has and some of these big time teams. So if you think this year's going to be tough, next year we're going to be looking at something bad too.
Well, and I'll say this, though, Frank, reinforcements are on the way, but it just takes time to get those guys in the trenches. I'm more worried about the O-line than D-line. The D-line, I think, could surprise, but, what do you do in games where you're one-dimensional? And I think it's foolish to think those games are not going to happen this year. So we shall see.
No,
I mean, again, we'll see. We'll see. So
we're going to see. Hopefully we find out, on September 2nd. And look, again, I'm not rooting against us, and I understand what the spread is, but I would like nothing better than to beat North Carolina 38-14, and then I'll entertain all these 9-3s. I mean, I just don't see a 10-2. But if we can go in and Rattler beats up on May because he's got a chip on his shoulder, because the way they have it now, May is like in the top 5 in Heisman Trophy contention, and Rattler's not even on the horizon. So maybe that's what he needs to go in there and prove himself.
Indeed. Frank, always a pleasure, man. Always great stuff from you. I truly appreciate you calling in.
Have a great day, my friend.
Yeah, man. We'll talk soon. Take care. Great stuff from Football Frank. Glad we were able to get his graphic up there. Really, really good stuff. And again, I'll say this, and you shouldn't have to say it. You should not have to say this. You should not. Just because you make predictions and you're able to look at things objectively and take off garnet glasses and just see things for what they are, not what you want them to be, it doesn't mean you're pulling for them to lose. I don't want to be right. I want to see Carolina go 15-0. But, the people, let me just put it to you this way. The people who go on social media and make absurd predictions and absurd proclamations, that's why they have no credibility. If I was sitting here picking Carolina to go 9-3, 10-2, 11-1 every year, you'd be like, his predictions ain't worth the paper they're printed on. Why would I listen to a word he says? But guess what? Year 1 of Shane B. We'll go back even further. 2020, I picked 3-7, got blasted for it. Carolina went 2-8. 2021, picked 6-6, 3-5. Gamecocks went 6-6, 3-5. Last year, picked 8-4, 4-4. Gamecocks went 8-4, 4-4. I'm trying to nail the predictions yet again. I don't want to nail them. But based off the information I have, what I know about this football team, this program, these coaches, these players, the rest of the SEC, that's how I feel the season will shake out. And it doesn't mean you're a bad fan or, like I saw somebody comment, how could you pick your favorite team to lose to your rival? Well, because I'm not looking at it as a fan. I'm not. I'm not looking at it as a fan, man. That's it. It's a toss-up game. Right now, I favor Clemson. They're a more talented football team. That's not a hot take. South Carolina's roster is getting closer, but it's not there yet. Very close competitive game. I give the Tigers the edge. Gamecock fans will never like when you pick a loss at Willie B. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. But I mean, guys, do you really think it's going to go, okay, we're going to go 7-0 at home and 0-5 on the road, and there's your, or 0-4 on the road, we're going to beat UNC, there's your 8-4. Come on, it ain't going to work out that way. You know it's not. Doesn't work out that way. Travis says, new studio looks awesome. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Let's see. Guys, we're going to roll through, obviously. We did not have our 2:15 break, but of course, Mark Ryan went long, so we will not take another break till about 2:40, maybe 2:45 or so. Let's see. I want to highlight this comment because it's so funny. Timmy jumps in and says, Timmy Huckabee, why is this dude's beard so dark? Says Graybeard is a moron. Then he says, Graybeard is owning him now. Blind Squirrel. Come on, bro. 41-10. Zoinks. DGD says, yeah, bro. I picked a close game last year. I picked a close game the year prior. Guys, until Carolina can even go compete with Georgia for 4 quarters, tired of giving the benefit of the doubt. All right, let's jump back to the phone lines
Call
here.
from
Robbie Davis, Zaxby's Hall of Famer.
Robbie Davis, what is going on, my friend? How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Doing well. I'm sorting. Oh, here we go. Is this the one? Here we go. Okay. I got a lot of graphics now, and I can't really read the text. I was sorting through a couple to find you, but here we are. So what's going on? I'm doing well, my friend. Doing well.
I just wanted to let you know before I get on to what I'm talking about that sometime in like the middle of August, when we get to almost the middle of August, I will give you my game-by-game prediction.
Okay.
The best I can.
Okay. Robbie, you're
But
there.
I
Listen. There's no way your predictions will be more scrutinized than mine. So I promise you there's no pressure.
Okay. But anyways, obviously the for sure wins that I have for right now is Furman and Jacksonville State for the moment. Do I think we'll win more games than just those two? Absolutely, I do. Okay, but for right now, the two and Vanderbilt. So those three games I have deadlocked as W's right now. But whenever we get into the middle of August, and I'll give you my full blown game by game score and prediction for all 12 games.
Okay.
So I just wanted you to know that. And
okay. I look forward to that, Robbie. I really do.
But just be prepared, just in case you gotta like pull up the schedule in case I forget to write it down.
I got you.
But I definitely think that this is a very important year for, and it's been shown in the recruiting that we need to start getting guys that can be a force on both sides of the ball on the line of scrimmage. And I think Beamer has shown through the recruiting the last few months that he is getting the right type of guys that we need to win at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball for the years to come. But I'm still a bit concerned about our offensive and defensive lines for this year because of last year. Because last year we played like straight hot dog water on the defensive side of the ball. And sometimes we played like hot dog water on the offensive side of the ball. And Beamer is showing that he is doing everything within his power to get guys that can help us from the get-go, the second they step on campus, on the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this season, Robbie, is going to come down to the line of scrimmage. But to your point, reinforcements are on the way, right? So,
right.
You know, they are. I mean, a couple of years, I'd say 2-3 years from now, South Carolina is going to be a force in the trenches. But right now, that those guys are not here, and if they are, they're not ready to play. So you got to roll with the ones you got, not the ones you want, and the ones you got. I mean, maybe they overachieve, maybe they exceed expectations. Maybe guys like Nick Gargiulo, the kid from Charlotte, Jackson Hughes, the kid from Mercer, Some of these other guys step up and are really, really good players. But fact of the matter is this: you return 2 starters from last year's offensive line that was outside of the top 100 rushing, and you lost Jalen Nichols for the season, your best offensive lineman. So to call it a makeshift situation is putting it lightly, I think.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And I definitely think that this coming season, Rattler is going to show that he's a better quarterback than what we saw last year.
Mm-hmm.
Because and even in the 63-38 win against Tennessee, he made some very questionable throws, in my opinion.
He made some, he made some throws. Everything was clicking that night. Everything was clicking that night. I just tell you this. I'll tell you this because I think what's happened, number one, I actually think the expectations for Carolina are pretty realistic this year from most. I think most will look at my predictions and say, that's fair. That's fair. Maybe I disagree with this game, that game, whatever, but that's fair for the most part.
Right.
South Carolina is not going to play the way they did against Tennessee for 12 straight games. They're not going to do it, man. They caught lightning in a bottle that night. That was a great night, a glorious night. I've literally got it enshrined in my studio with a piece of the Williams-Brice Stadium hedges. But to expect this team to play at that level every game, it's not going to happen, man. It's not going to happen. They may for 1 or 2 games, but not every game. And so I think some people have let that Tennessee game sort of cloud their perception of how good this team is.
Right. And I think the only way that we'll even beat Georgia is if their bus breaks down on the way to the stadium. Okay? I'm just being real here. That's the only chance that we have at beating Georgia, is if their bus breaks down on the way to Sanford Stadium and they can't make it. Okay? There's no way. There's not a snowball's chance in hell that we're going to probably walk out of Athens with a dub.
The only way Carolina beats Georgia is if their bus breaks down on the way to the stadium, per Robbie Davis. Wow. I thought I was harsh. I thought that I was harsh.
I'm being honest here. Okay. Like and I know it sounded funny, but still I'm being serious because they reloaded. I mean, it is insane. They lost all their defensive starters in the draft several months ago, and all they did was just reload. I would not be surprised one bit if they stayed ranked number 1 all year long.
No, I mean, I think they're certainly favored to three-peat, no doubt. Certainly favored to three-peat, as they should be.
If the season was to start this coming Saturday, I would pick this would be I would have Georgia winning it all right now.
Okay.
If the season started this coming Saturday, I would pick Georgia to win it all. And if my Georgia Bulldog friend was sitting right next to me, he would probably think I'm high on something, but it would be he because he's never heard me say these words, but that would be my pick to win the title right now if the season was to start this coming Saturday. They would be I would pick them to win the whole thing right now.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, Robbie, I look forward to when you do lock in your predictions, my friend.
I'll have it ready to go about midway through August.
We look forward to that, Robbie. Truly.
All right, man. I'm going to get over here. Have a great rest of your day, okay?
Take care, Robbie. I appreciate you. We'll talk soon. Great stuff from Robbie Davis. 8 minutes and 51 seconds, by the way, for Robbie Davis. Unfortunately, Lynn, we cannot do split screen with those graphics. I will try to go back and forth and make it sort of a seamless transition, but we cannot go split screen with the graphics. So I think most like the graphics, personally. Justin Bryant says 8-4 losses to Georgia, Tennessee, A&M in a letdown. Just not sure who. Let's see. Okay. Madison Duncan says, I love the countdown to kickoff daily plays from the past. Gives me a funny feeling, and I like it. Madison, I'm glad. I love doing it, man. The countdown's fun. The countdown's very fun. Okay. I feel like this comes up every single offseason, every single season, whatever. Lynn Turner says this. The best way we get rid of the albatross of history is to stop refreshing it. Don't keep reminding the fans or the players. Attitude is important. And Lynn, I don't know if you're talking to me or if you're talking to others, but let me just say this, because I got this a lot yesterday as well about how could you be who you are and pick this? Like, people who don't know me very well or don't know, they're not familiar with TSUS, they're not familiar with our game, right? Folks who are not familiar with us, I think there's some folks, and again, Lynn, thank you for the question. I think there's some folks that get this twisted misconception that TSUS is here to be South Carolina's hype man. You're a South Carolina account. You should be pro all things South Carolina. Guys, I'm a Gamecock fan. I was born a Gamecock fan, raised a Gamecock fan, despite what you may hear. Been a Gamecock fan my entire life. But I'm also a content creator. I am a content creator. And South Carolina is my subject matter. I am not here to be USC's hype man. I am not on USC's payroll. Quite the contrary. USC has done things and continues to do things in an effort to put me out of business. USC would prefer that I go away. So forgive me for not wanting to parade around USC as the way you would prefer I do. Let me just say that. I've built my brand and my business off of being genuine and authentic. Again, I was raised by a Gamecock, but I was not raised by a bullshitter. So my grandfather, who got me into the Gamecocks, he would call it very much as it is. Son, we're not good on the line of scrimmage. Son, we're not a great football team. My grandfather didn't set unrealistic expectations for anything. We saw it very transparently, saw it very much as is from the jump. And I carry that with me to this day. So I am not here to be USC's hype man. I am not here to, it's not my job to change the culture. It's not my job to change the narrative. I make predictions based off of known commodities. I make predictions based off of the analysis that I've done while watching the games, while studying the team, while looking at the statistics, everything in between. Sometimes I'm right. Sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes I'm somewhere in the middle. But I am not on USC's payroll. Far from it. And so I'm not just going to spew out USC propaganda. That's not the role of TSUS. And to be honest with you, and I don't know how this will be received, but it's just the truth. You know, people view, okay, you're the Spurs Up show. You're Chris Phillips of the Spurs Up show. You're a Gamecock first. You should be slanted all thing Gamecocks. I am a Gamecock fan, yes, to my core. I wouldn't rock the garnet and black every day and do what I do. I could not do it if I was not passionate about the University of South Carolina and the Gamecocks. But I am my own human being first. I'm a content creator first, South Carolina is my subject matter. That's it. I have no slant. I have no bias. And I got to be totally transparent with you guys. And the love I've received from Gamecock fans, Gamecock Nation, those who love and support the show, without that, we could not do what we do. I could not be doing this full time, sitting here talking to you all. But I got to be honest, the way that I've been treated by some Gamecocks and the way that I've been treated by the University of South Carolina, mind you, it makes it very easy to be objective. It makes it very easy to not look at things with a slant, with a bias, if you will. So I cannot promise that I will be pro South Carolina all the time. And people say, well, you're not being pro, you're being negative. A prediction's not negative. It's just a prediction. I'd be doing you more of a disservice to bullshit you. I would be doing more of a disservice to bullshit you. And I'm not just talking to you, Lynn, obviously. I'm just speaking more so to the masses, if you will. I know, Lynn Turner, you're a supporter at TSUS, and I like the fact, Lynn, listen, I actually, believe it or not, like the fact that you challenge authority, that you challenge me on things, because it gives me the opportunity to have conversations like this. I enjoy that. I love the banter. The beauty's in the banter. The beauty's not in the trolling, the cancellation tactics on social media, that type of nonsense. The beauty's not in that, but the beauty in the banter, I love that. It truly is. The beauty's in the banter. But to your point, and Lynn Turner says, I'm just tired of hearing that South kind of football. I don't think that picking losses and being realistic is bad. I'm just tired of predictions based on always. Lynn, I hear you. But the only thing that's going to change those things I'm saying is on the field. And I mean, remove all that. But this football team this year has a lot of the same characteristics as some other teams in the past in regards to line of scrimmage, in regards to other things that could lead to some of the inconsistencies that we have seen before. Shane Beamer, however, is recruiting in a way that is not characteristic of South Carolina. It will change South Carolina football. But this 2023 season, I will say this, I disagree, and I don't know if Mark would go this far, but Mark has put a lot of emphasis on year 3. I disagree with Mark that, if you don't win 8 or 9, that it's not the ascension you need. I would disagree. Let's jump to the phone lines here. Justin, what's going on, my friend? How are you?
How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing well. We've got a graphic for you that I'm trying to find here. I thought we did. Maybe we don't. I will find it. I will get that made, Justin.
Wow.
I do apologize. I thought we had one. I'm confused. I really thought we had one. Anyways, I will have you a graphic up, Justin. That's my apologies, man. What's going on?
Oh, not much. Hey, Chris, how's your 4th of July?
It was good, man. It was good. I had a great time. And it was a lot of fun. Been moving a lot, though.
Oh, you be moved to a big house?
Say it again?
You be moved to another house?
Yeah. So we're in a house now, man. It's awesome. The new studio setup is incredible, man. I absolutely love it.
Oh, that's awesome, Chris. Well, mine was good too, Chris. It was so hot,
Yeah, no, it's been really hot. The month of July, apparently, though, is supposed to be not quite as hot as it's been. So we'll see.
Oh yeah. Hey Chris, I got 2 important things to tell you, man. Hey Chris, the game for soccer this year is the Florida. That's soccer on the calendar,
For me, yeah. I mean, I think the Florida game is the most important. I really do. I think because of where it falls in the schedule, what happened last year, SEC East hierarchy, what it means for this year. That's why I label Florida as the most important. There are others, though. I'll tell you this: there are others that you could convince me, but for me, Florida is that game.
Oh yeah. Okay. The reason I took the Florida game because look, that was a lot less of a fit for the Gamecocks last year, right, Chris?
That was, yeah. The Florida game was ugly last year, safe to say.
Yeah, and I thought the Gamecocks want payback.
And the same way I talked about revenge in the Tennessee game, I could see South Carolina feeling the same exact way, exacting their revenge on Florida.
Oh yeah. Because Chris, think about last year because you lost to a first-year head coach, right?
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Yep. And Chris, that's been a big component for most everybody, right, Chris?
Right. You're absolutely right, my friend.
And Chris, but why does this keep happening to anybody every year, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a huge game, man. We got to find a way to win it.
Yeah. And Chris, the other game is the Georgia game too, because and Chris, we know Georgia they're going to repeat the national championship. If you're stuck up, how you going to stop that?
Yeah, it's going to be tough, man. I mean, listen, is there a path to a major upset? I mean, we've seen the Gamecocks go into Athens before and do the unthinkable, but I just think with what your deficiencies up front, man, I keep going back to it. And, people have gotten upset. Like, why do you keep bringing up what kind of football's been in the past? Fine, we won't. I'll give you football reasons why it'll be challenging. You don't have the guys in the trenches. I don't think you do. Not to compete with Georgia, not to compete with the Georgia Bulldogs. So forgive me that I don't think Carolina, I mean, guys, that game wasn't even competitive last year. 48-7, it could have been much worse. Stetson Bennett didn't play the fourth quarter. Like, you're telling me Carolina is 41 points better this year, or Georgia's 41 points worse? It's no freaking way, dude. There's no way. I give you 1% chance to win that ball game because I've learned never to give Beamer 0%.
Oh, yeah. I agree, Chris. And think about that last year. Look, people pick soccer upset Georgia, but think about it, Chris. We don't have the depth to compete with these big dogs, do we, Chris?
We're adding them. Reinforcements are on the way. We just don't have them yet.
Yeah, and Chris, and you're right. Georgia's going to be, and Chris, like you said, to that change, right, Chris?
It did indeed. Yep, it did indeed.
Yep. And Chris, I got one last thing before I go. And Chris,
yeah.
What's the worst college football job?
What's the worst college football job?
Oh yeah.
Shoot, I don't know, man. I would say Kansas. They had a pretty good year last year. I don't know, man. That's. I mean, I'll tell you this. I don't know if I can name a specific school, but I'd say the worst college football job is being in a place they just don't care about football. And they don't invest the resources and they don't invest the things you need to be successful. That's the worst college football job.
The Kansas job.
Kansas could be it. I don't want to say Vandy because I think Vandy's starting to come around, but Austin Gregory says Auburn. I mean, for the expectations purposes, you could say Auburn. But I think you'd rather be in a place that has it's a good thing to have pressure. Auburn, though, because of the red tape, because of some of the stuff behind the scenes, you could throw that one in there. So,
oh yeah, and Chris, I agree with you about the Auburn job. And listen, Chris, those fans are not patient. You know that?
Right.
And Chris, I got another job too. I think Georgia Tech's the worst job because they don't care about football, do they, Chris?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Georgia Tech is interesting because of the academic side. And it's just hard to recruit there and get the type of athletes you need to win big, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and think about Georgia Tech last year. Nobody wanted y'all last year because, you can't get anybody. Oh, it was just so bad last year, right, Chris?
Mm-hmm. Right, absolutely.
Yeah, it's just because you can win there, but the thing about do you have the white guy to compete with Chris of Georgia, right?
Say it again, Justin.
Do you have a white coach compete with Chris of Georgia in your Wildman with Georgia Tech? That's the same by, right, Chris?
Yeah, that's a trash rivalry, man. It's all dominated by Georgia, so. Anyways,
yeah,
I don't know. Justin, I appreciate the call, my guy. We're going to close out the show. Always great to hear from you, my man.
You ain't Chris. Take care, my friend. We'll talk about football when it gets to you.
Oh, yeah. We'll talk soon, my guy. I appreciate you. Great stuff from Justin. Again, appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Let's see. Again, guys, 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377 here on this Thursday, July the 6th, 2023. Chase Floyd, promoting the Big Cock Club. Join or be forever small. I love that. Madison Duncan. Chris, anywhere on the next tour? Madison, great question. And I'm glad you bring this up because there will not be a TSUS summer tour. I know. Breaking news over the last week or so, had conversations with Carolina Ale House. They are restructuring their marketing department or just restructuring in general. And simply put, Carolina Ale House does not have the funds necessary or the marketing budget, the marketing spend to continue our partnership. So, effective this month, or basically right now, last week or so, the partnership with Carolina Ale House has, for at least the time being, come to an end. And again, talking with Carolina Ale House, it is something that they did not necessarily want to do. They loved the value we were driving for them. They loved the watch parties. They loved the tour. But it really just does come down to money and them not being able to afford it. And I'm not sure if they're doing some downsizing with their company or what have you. I didn't get all those details. But the partnership between between the Spurs Up Show and Carolina Ale House has come to an end. So unfortunately, there will not be a TSUS summer tour, and there will not be watch parties at Carolina Ale House this season. Now, that does not mean we're not working on some other one-off shows to do before the season, maybe even during the season. But, you know, guys, I'll say this. I have a lot of love and admiration for Carolina Ale House. I want to say thank you, by the way, on these airwaves to Carolina Ale House for taking a chance on me and especially sticking with us through the adversity and when things get kind of crazy during the football season. So I want to say thank you to them for that. I am excited for the new opportunities and the new doors that this opens. As one door closes, you know, 3 or 4 more open. And I'm excited for the new doors that it opens because I will say this, guys. And as I've said before, we keep it a buck. We keep it real. The partnership with Carolina Ale House was overall a net positive and something I'm really happy happened. As many of you recall, though, there were some things, I'll just say there were some loose ends that I think we could have done a better job in regards to the events, the watch parties, etc. So I am excited while this ends, unfortunately, and, you know, maybe we'll be able to collaborate with Carolina Ale House down the road. I am excited for the new opportunities now, you know, not having to, and, you know, I really hate we don't get to do the tour. That sucks. Getting to go across the state and meet up with you all and hang out with you guys is something I always look forward to. But, you know, just like when Tin Roof came to an end, right? You know, with this extra time now and not having to go on the road and stuff like that, I think, again, this opens the door for more opportunities in business, us to do different things. Also, the biggest thing, what this does, guys, we were already planning the post-game call-in shows for every single game this season. Now we'll be able to do that for every single road game as well because, you know, I was thinking to myself, I was wondering, okay, are we going to do the post-game call-in shows from Carolina Ale House? Are we going to have to leave early? Like, what are we doing? And so now that we don't have to worry about that, I'll be able to, again, be locked in studio, do the exact same thing I'm doing for the home games, do it for the road games, and be sitting right here doing the post-game call-in show. So I am really, really excited for that we're going to have that ability, if you will, to do that and not have to kind of deal with the headache of, okay, what do we do for the call-in show? When do I leave? What do I do? What do we set up? How's the Wi-Fi, right? Whatever. So anyways, that is breaking news, something I had not shared with you all. Unfortunately, the TSUS tour will not be happening this summer because the partnership with Carolina Ale House has come to an end due to, again, them downsizing and not having the funds in their marketing budget to afford the partnership this football season, which, again, totally understand. It's totally fine. I appreciate Carolina Ale House, and hopefully we can do something down the road. Anyways, guys, just a couple of minutes left. Again, I apologize to those who may have not seen, who may have not heard yet, excuse me. No TSUS tour this summer. And I do hate that, I will say. I mean, I do hate it. I do hate it. I hope that there's a way that we can do something. I mean, the watch parties were great. The tour is what I really hate we're missing out on. The Zaxby's Summer Tour, Frank, I hear you. Are they willing to sponsor it and pay? That's the question. We'll see. Again, I really do believe, Frank, we've actually been in conversations with my good buddy Talon over at Market on Main. We've talked about doing something there. We've talked about doing a live show from a cockaboose just ahead of football season. So I think there are many things we could do. I think there are things we can do, will do, that'll be different, that'll be fun. And I'm looking forward to it, man. Anyways, thank you all so much to those who tuned in. Thank you all so much to those who called in. Mark Ryan as well for coming out, or excuse me, for taking the time to chat today. Really do appreciate his insight, his banter, his conversation. Always a lot of fun. And, of course, guys, tomorrow we'll be live as normal, noon to 3. Tomorrow, I will lock in my game-by-game predictions, not scores, but predictions for the entire SEC. I'll have the helmet schedule, and we will show off the picks. We'll show off the picks for the game-by-game predictions for the entire SEC. So, guys, again, thank you all so much. Appreciate you all tuning in. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube, hit the bell icon so you get notifications when we go live. And also, be sure you subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out there, as well as the podcast drop daily, every single day at 5 p.m. Eastern. Guys, again, thank you all so much. Appreciate you all tuning in. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and we will talk to you all tomorrow.